Chapter 484. They're all dead. Yin Shixiang's eyes widened and he said in an exaggerated tone, "The criminals are too cruel, aren't they?" "Yes, they're indeed too cruel. Everyone is saying that these gunmen are here for Mr. Gu. They're still guessing that it must be Mr. Gu's old enemies who are here for revenge." The driver's spittle flew everywhere as if he was about to write a legend. Zhao Liangzi was speechless. He turned his head to look out the window and muttered, "You guys know that too? If you're so imaginative, why don't you become a scriptwriter?" Wu Xiaoheng listened with great interest. He crossed his arms and rubbed his chin with one hand. He asked the driver in a low voice, "Didn't you guys say that Mr. Gu is very kind and does a lot of charity? Why would he have a big enemy?" "Sir, think about it. Mr. Gu is so rich but he keeps a low profile. To be honest, before he met with the plane crash, his charity work was done anonymously. We had no idea who it was. He became a vegetable, and his eldest daughter specially invited the Vatican's Pope to their house to pray for her father before he announced the news. We only found out that Mr. Gu had done so much for us without saying a word." The driver was very emotional. He bowed to the living room and said, "Please leave. So many people have died here. No one will dare to come here again." Wu Xiaoheng and the others weren't afraid of dead people, but they still acted a little scared in front of the driver to act like normal people. Yin Shixiang shivered exaggeratedly and said in a trembling voice, "Sir, let's go. It's so creepy here." As he spoke, he glanced around the living room and didn't see anything suspicious. He turned back and gave Zhao Liangzi a look. The two of them stood behind Wu Xiaoheng and lowered their heads to take out a cigar bought in Cuba. They cut off the end with a knife and lit it. Wu Xiaoheng also reached out to him. "Give me one." The three of them lit the cigars and said to the driver, "We're going out to smoke. What about you?" The driver finally became happy and said, "Cuban cigars? Good stuff. I can tell it's good stuff from the smell." As he spoke, he also took out a cigar and waved it at them. "I have one too, but it's not as good as yours. It smells so good." Yin Shixiang handed a Cuban cigar to the driver. "Come, let's smoke together." Under the pretext of smoking cigars, they walked out of the living room and walked around the Gu family's mansion. The security of the Gu family's mansion used to be very tight, but a lot of the equipment was old and in disrepair. No one had maintained the equipment after Gu Xiangxing's accident, right? Wu Xiaoheng and the others were experts in this field, so they were itching to see the exquisite equipment being wasted. They wanted nothing more than to dismantle the equipment and bring it back to the Wuxia Empire to study it carefully. Wu Xiaoheng held the cigar and looked at the Gu mansion with a complicated expression. He thought that his attitude toward Gu Yanran wasn't very professional. They stayed in the Gu mansion for more than an hour before leaving. The taxi driver drove them to a tavern before leaving. Wu Xiaoheng, Yin Shixiang, and Zhao Liangzi wouldn't eat in a pub like this. They were only here to find a place to talk. It was the safest to talk in a noisy place like this where all sorts of people gathered. "Wu Xiao, what do you plan to do after seeing so much?" Yin Shixiang gave Wu Xiaoheng a bottle of blueberry rum brewed by the locals. "Try this. It's not bad. I tried it and it's fine." Wu Xiaoheng played with the glass for a long time before saying, "If Gu Yanran wants us to escort her father, she'll think of a way. It's better for us to stay put than to act." "But Wu Xiao, what if she finds someone else? Didn't we come here for her father?" Zhao Liangzi was a bit worried. "Yes, we are determined to get Gu Xiangwen, but Gu Yanran might not necessarily want us to escort her father to the United States." Yin Shixiang took a sip of rum and clapped his hands to the rhythm of the female singer who was swaying on stage. "Yes, I remember she's very close with Professor He. With the He family's influence in South America, it's only a matter of time before they send some people to escort them to the United States." "Wu Xiao, are you really going to keep pushing it?" Zhao Liangzi voiced his concerns and broke out in cold sweat at Wu Xiaoheng's actions. Wu Xiaoheng wasn't very sure either. Yin Shixiang's words were also something he had considered. However, after thinking about it, he felt that his actions were right. He never explained his actions to his subordinates, but this time he needed Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi to cooperate with him. Therefore he told them his thoughts. "Think about it this way. If Gu Yanran doesn't look for us and goes to the He family, then she can make the He family move. We don't need to go to South America to see the He family's power more clearly. If Gu Yanran insists on us escorting her, then it means that her relationship with the He family isn't as close as she claims. Or the He family and the Gu family might even have conflicts, so she can't completely entrust the He family to control." Wu Xiaoheng wrote a few words on the table with wine and quickly crossed it off. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi finally understood what Wu Xiaoheng meant. They smiled sheepishly. Wuxiao, you don't have to explain. We were wrong this time. Actually, we also crossed the line. It's okay. The situation can change very quickly in the outside world. We need to work together and not blindly follow orders. Wuxiaoheng comforted his subordinates. Okay, remember, we are soldiers of the Huaxia Empire, not mercenaries. We can't accept Gu Yanran's suggestion. However, we can't let go of the Gu family either. We have to continue observing them from the shadows. The three of them drank for a while before leaving to return to the hotel they were staying at. In the evening, they sat in the private car sent by the governor of Barbados and went to the governor's office as guests. That night, the governor's office of Barbados had prepared a banquet for them. It could be considered a state banquet, but the standards weren't as high. After all, Wuxiaoheng was only a representative of the Huaxia Empire, not the entire country. They got out of the car in front of the tall European-style governor's office of Barbados. Wuxiaoheng looked up at the two huge white pillars in front of the governor's office. Many religious stories from the Bible were engraved on the pillars. The carvings were exquisite and the figures were lifelike. Even the creases on the robes could be seen clearly. Wuxiaoheng folded his hands behind his back and looked at the carvings with interest. He nodded at the governor who came out of the room to welcome him. Hello, Governor. Hello, Major General Hua. It's our honor to have you attend our banquet. The governor was a chubby black man in his 60s, but he was very polite. It was obvious that he came from a wealthy family and didn't grow up in the slums. Wuxiaoheng nodded at him and shook his hand briefly before following him into the governor's office of Barbados. The spacious hall was decorated with jewels and jewels. 5 large crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, illuminating the entire hall as if it were daytime. The lighting was especially gentle, and the makeup of every woman in the living room was exquisite and beautiful. It was like professional spotlights in the film and television industry, and it made one's skin look exquisite and flawless. Gu Yanran wore a bright red fishtail dress with black trim. Her long hair was coiled into a bun at the back of her head, and she wore a diamond tiara as a headband. The quality of the diamond was very good, and the crystal chandelier's light practically refracted a tiny rainbow on it. She was as beautiful as jade under the rainbow, and her eyes sparkled. Everyone in the living room, regardless of gender or age, was captivated by Gu Yanran's appearance. She was obviously very familiar with everyone here. She held a glass of rainbow-colored cocktail and mingled with the distinguished guests in the living room. From time to time she would whisper and laugh with the guests, clinking glasses with them as if she was half the host. After a while she came to Wuxiaoheng and took a cocktail from the waiter's tray. She handed it to Wuxiaoheng. Cheers. Wuxiaoheng accepted it and smiled. Miss Gu seems to be in a good mood. Yes, because my problem has been solved. Gu Yanran smiled amiably. Mr. Hua, you'll find out soon. With that she turned and left, leaving only her snow-white back and slender neck to Wuxiaoheng. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi stood beside Wuxiaoheng and looked at Gu Yanran's evening gown in shock. They gasped. This evening gown is so eye-catching. Yes. The front is completely wrapped up and nothing is showing. But the back is completely bare. Zhao Liangzi couldn't help but take a few photos of Gu Yanran. Wuxiaoheng looked at Gu Yanran's back and frowned. He quickly looked away and walked to the window. He connected the Bluetooth headset and called Gu Yanji. It was 6 or 7 in the morning in the Huaxia Empire. Gu Yanji had just woken up and went to the bathroom to wash up. When she came out, she saw that she had missed Wuxiaoheng's call. Annoyed, she quickly called back. Wuxiaoheng guessed that Gu Yanji must have gone to wash up or eat breakfast when no one picked up. So he wasn't surprised when Gu Yanji called back after a while. Wuxiao, is that you? Gu Yanji's surprised voice sounded from Wuxiaoheng's Bluetooth headset. She was very close to his eardrums, and it felt like a pair of soft hands caressing his ears. His earlobes gradually turned red. Yes, Yanji. Are you up? Wuxiaoheng walked to the sofa by the window and crossed his legs. His eyes were still scanning the guests in the living room. He stared at each person. I just woke up. I went to the bathroom to wash up and missed your call. Gu Yanji's crisp voice was like an oriole's. She couldn't stop talking. Wuxiao, what are you doing? What time is it over there? It's 7 or 8 o'clock over here. I'm at a dinner party at the governor's office in Barbados, Wuxiaoheng said nonchalantly. He had no intention of hiding anything from Gu Yanji. There was no need to hide these things. He was on an official visit and not a secret operation. Therefore, his itinerary was open to the Huaxia imperial government, military, and senate. As his family, Gu Yanji could also know his itinerary. Gu Yanji laughed when she heard that. Is there a lot of good food? What are the specialties of Barbados? Hua Xiaoheng laughed and shook his head. You only know how to eat. He was just about to tell Gu Nianji about the specialties of Barbados when Gu Yanran's voice suddenly sounded clearly behind him. Is Mr. Hua here? I have to go. I came to say goodbye to Mr. Hua. The Bluetooth headset's reception was too good. Gu Nianji also heard the voice over the phone. She froze for a moment before realizing it was Gu Yanran. Then she remembered that Gu Yanran was in Barbados. Could Hua Xiaoheng's visit actually have something to do with Gu Yanran? She was a bit unhappy. Hua Xiaoheng had said he was going to Cuba. He never said he was going to Barbados. This is the second update. Today is the third update. Please get monthly votes and recommendation votes. There's still the third update at 7 p.m. Chapter 485. Hearing Gu Yanran's voice, Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to turn around. It was impossible for him to be impolite in front of so many people. Hua Xiaoheng whispered to Gu Nianji, "Something came up. I'll hang up now." He turned off his Bluetooth headset and got up from the sofa to see Gu Yanran being blocked by Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi behind a large bonsai. Miss Gu is leaving? Hua Xiaoheng walked over. So early? Yes, something came up at home. My father will be going to the United States soon. I'll send him back before coming back to organize the funeral for our old servants. Gu Yanran's expression turned serious. Our family suffered a great loss this time. I'll make them pay for every single one of their lives. Then Miss Gu, do you know who sent the gunman? Hua Xiaoheng put his hands in the pockets of his tuxedo and looked at Gu Yanran intently. If you don't know who the mastermind is, you won't be safe anywhere. Gu Yanran smiled bitterly. If we can't even be safe in the United States, I think we can only wait to die. Actually, in theory, everyone is waiting to die from the moment they are born, so Miss Gu doesn't have to feel too sad. Yin Shixiang joked around to lighten the mood. The corners of Gu Yanran's mouth twitched again. Turning to face Hua Xiaoheng, she lifted the hem of her dress and gave a Western-style bow. Mr. Hua, until we meet again. With that, she turned to leave, leaving behind a snow-white silhouette. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Yanran thoughtfully as she walked out of the governor's office and gave Yin Shixiang a look. Yin Shixiang nodded knowingly and left as well. After they left, Hua Xiaoheng returned to his seat and continued to call Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji was sitting on her bed in her dorm, hugging her legs and looking very tired. Ma Qiqi called out from outside the door. Nianji? It's time for breakfast. There's fresh meat dumplings and mixed grain porridge that you like. I specially went to the porridge store outside to buy them for you. Gu Nianji felt hungry as soon as she heard Ma Qiqi's voice. She heaved a long sigh of relief and hit her head. She cursed herself for not having eaten her fill. Why was she so bloated? She had just gotten off the bed when she heard her phone ring again. She quickly took it and unlocked it. Hua Xiao. Seeing that it was getting late, Hua Xiaoheng hurriedly said, Nianji, did you know that Professor he was looking for Gu Yanran? Gu Nianji was originally a little unhappy, but when Hua Xiaoheng asked about it, she immediately calmed down and answered honestly, I did. Why didn't you tell me? Hua Xiaoheng's voice deepened. How many times have I told you to tell me anything? Don't hide it from me. Do you remember? Gu Nianji felt very wronged. She leaned against the wall with her phone in her hand and whispered, Didn't you guys test my DNA with hers? There's no connection at all. So when Professor he asked Gu Yanran for the contact information of her family doctor and dentist, I thought it was unnecessary and fruitless, so I didn't mention it. There was no point in telling him anyway. Besides, was she really going to tell him everything that happened in her life, no matter how big or small? Wouldn't he annoy her to death? Hua Xiaoheng thought about it and felt that what Gu Nianji said made sense. However, the relationship between He Zhichu and Gu Yanran, as well as the relationship between the He's and Gu's, was the focus of their investigation. Therefore, it was better to tell him everything related to that. But he couldn't explain it clearly to Gu Nianji. So after thinking about it, Hua Xiaoheng decided not to continue talking about it. His voice became gentle. Nianji, did you miss me when I wasn't around for a few days? Gu Nianji's heart was suddenly filled with sweetness. She whispered, Yes. I missed you every day. I missed you all the time. She then asked Hua Xiaoheng, What about you? Did you miss me? What do you think? When they were on the Gu's island, Hua Xiaoheng's heart softened whenever he thought of Gu Nianji. That feeling was too foreign to him, who was cold and stern. His first reaction was to suppress that softness. Later on, he slowly accepted that it was a feeling that belonged to him and Gu Nianji. The corners of Gu Nianji's mouth curled up. She began to say coyly, I don't know. I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me. Her drawn-out voice turned in a circle. It was like a silk thread wrapping around his heart again and again. Hua Xiaoheng grunted and said calmly, "I'm going over there to toast the governor. You're about to start class, right?" Gu Nianji could only give up. She quickly said, "Then take care." She then said reluctantly, "I'll wait for you to come back." "Okay, good girl." Through the phone, thousands of mountains and rivers across the ocean, Gu Nianji seemed to feel the warmth of Hua Xiaoheng's large hand caressing the top of her head. She narrowed her eyes. All the blood that filled her chest slowly flowed back to her limbs. Opening her eyes, she felt like she was alive again. She was in high spirits. The world looked so much better than it did a second ago. Opening the room door, she saw the dining table in the living room filled with breakfast. She took a deep breath. This must be the taste of happiness. Hua Xiaoheng and the others only left the banquet at the governor's residence late at night. As soon as they returned to the hotel, Hua Xiaoheng received a call. He immediately understood why Gu Yanran was so confident. The call was from the highest commander of the Huaxia Empire's army, General Ji. The first thing he said was, "Xiaoheng, the military has given you a mission. You're responsible for escorting Gu Yanran's father, Gu Xiangwen, to the United States. You have to ensure his safety. There can be no mistakes." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. What was going on? General Ji saw that Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak for a long time and knew he was upset. Gu Yanran had already asked someone to tell him about the previous incident. She had even sent a big gift to the Huaxia Empire's army. The new laser-guided weapon was known as the Satellite Killer. The Huaxia Empire had been developing it themselves, but they hadn't had a breakthrough in accuracy until Gu Yanran had emailed them a blueprint model that perfectly solved their technical problems. Gu Yanran had always been in contact with the Huaxia Empire's higher-ups. The donation incident last time had caused some unhappiness, but Gu Yanran apologized very sincerely this time and sent her own gift first. Her only condition was that Hua Xiaoheng bring people to help escort her and her father to the United States. From Barbados to the United States, as long as they got on the plane, they would be halfway to success. However, the problem was that Gu Yanran was still hiding her father somewhere. Even the gunmen couldn't find him. Hua Xiaoheng asked General Ji calmly, "Do you know that she's being hunted? Do you know why she's being hunted?" General Ji froze. "I know that she's being hunted. Otherwise she wouldn't have asked for your help. Xiaoheng, this isn't right. Since she has a favor to ask from us, how can you leave her be?" Hua Xiaoheng wanted to say that he had his own plans, but the involvement of the military higher-ups had obviously disrupted his plans. He couldn't ask them to listen to his commands. After a moment of silence, Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Okay, I can escort her, but she can't go to the United States. She has to come to the Huaxia Empire. This is the third update. Today is the third update. I'm asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today is the last day of double voting, so please vote if you can. Thank you." Chapter 486. General Ji burst into hearty laughter and nodded repeatedly. As expected of Xiaoheng. "You won't lose anything. You're exactly what I thought." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. "Xiaoheng, did you think I'd make a losing deal? Since Gu Yanran asked us to help, we can't just do whatever she says. That's what I told her too. If she comes to our country, I'll let you personally escort her. If she goes to the United States, let her look for the American CIA." General Ji said happily, "I just wanted to test you just now. Now that you suddenly mentioned going to Barbados and caused such a big commotion, the old men in the country are very unhappy. But as long as you can bring Gu Xiangwen back, everything that happened in the past will be written off. They can't be more than happy." Hua Xiaoheng's lips twitched. "General Ji, why beat around the bush with me?" "I'm not beating around the bush with you." General Ji stopped smiling. "Someone is already saying that you're going to Barbados because of Gu Yanran and that you're acting with her. Is that so?" Hua Xiaoheng calmed down. He would be surprised if no one tried to sabotage him later on. "Then do you believe me or not, General Ji?" Actually, the fact that General Ji was testing him showed many problems. It was because of Gu Nianji before, and now it was because of Gu Yanran. The two of them might even be sisters. If things went south, Hua Xiaoheng might lose his reputation and career. He was groomed by General Ji. Of course, General Ji didn't want to see his right-hand man make a mistake because of women. But he had to be careful. There were too many young men who made a mistake because of women. Otherwise, why would there be an old saying that a hero's home was the home of a woman? General Ji understood what Hua Xiaoheng was implying. He sighed. "It's not that I don't trust you, but trust needs to be accumulated through experience. After this incident, my trust in you will naturally increase. I hope you won't let down the trust the country and its people have in you and bring Gu Xiangwen back. But General Ji, even if Gu Xiangwen comes to our country, he might not be of much use. Wu Xiaoheng vaguely felt that the people in the military were overestimating Gu Xiangwen. Although Gu Xiangwen was very powerful, he was now in a vegetative state and had been in a coma for 7 years. The chances of him waking up in the future were too low. Otherwise, with the Gu family's wealth and He family's connections, and the best doctors and medical equipment in the world, why hadn't Gu Xiangwen woken up yet? I know. Let's get it back first. General Ji ordered, you have to be careful abroad. I think there's something fishy about the gunman who suddenly appeared in the Gu family. Have you caught him? No, they're all dead. Wu Xiaoheng shook his head. But if we want to bring Gu Xiangwen back to the country, these gunmen will probably appear again. I request the military to give us more support and convenience. Otherwise, the 3 of us from the Special Operations Forces won't be able to complete this mission. This was because he was not traveling as the commander of the Special Operations Forces, but as the Deputy Secretary General of the Supreme Military Council. Therefore, the people from the Special Operations Forces only brought his 2 personal secretaries, Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi. I approve this. Get the Standing Committee of the Supreme Military Council to stamp it immediately. I'll send it to your email when it's done. General Ji agreed without hesitation and immediately got his secretary to prepare. Wu Xiaoheng put down the phone and looked at the night sky outside the window. Although it was very late, he didn't feel sleepy at all. He began to plan the operation. If he wanted to bring Gu Xiangwen back in a vegetative state, he needed to think of a way to distract the gunman. Create a diversion? Or a substitute? He thought about it for a while and finally decided the root of the problem was with Gu Yanran. If he didn't know the cause and effect of the gunman, he wouldn't be able to come up with a foolproof plan. Therefore, he still had to make a trip to Gu Yanran. Was this the reason why Gu Yanran was so confident tonight? Wu Xiaoheng smiled faintly and turned off the lights to sleep. It was noon in the capital of the Huaxia Empire. The sun was shining brightly, and there wasn't a single cloud in the blue sky. It was as blue as a transparent blue crystal. Gu Nianji rode her bicycle to He Zhichu's building. He Zhichu's Maserati happened to drive over. Gu Nianji put the bicycle in the shed and stood under the shade to wait for He Zhichu. He Zhichu lowered the window and said to Gu Nianji, "Get in." "Where is Professor He going?" Gu Nianji walked to his window with a smile. "Don't you have class today?" "The information I got from Gu Yanran's family doctor and dentist has arrived. Do you want to go to the hospital with me to verify it?" He Zhichu's shimmering, sultry eyes looked at Gu Nianji silently. He didn't seem to have any feelings, but it also seemed like he had 1,000 things to say. Gu Nianji didn't think there would be any results, but He Zhichu had worked so hard to get this information. It didn't seem right for her to not go. Of course, the key was He Zhichu mentioning the name, Gu Yanran. Because of Wu Xiaoheng's trip to South America, Gu Nianji valued the name, Gu Yanran again. She opened the car door. "Then it would be impolite of me to refuse. Professor He, why do you think I have something to do with Gu Yanran? Although her sister is also named Gu Nianji, she has never asked me to confirm anything about her identity." Gu Nianji felt that she needed to remind He Zhichu to prevent his expectations from being too high. It would be terrible if he didn't meet them. He Zhichu smiled and didn't say anything. He started the car again and drove away. They went to a famous private hospital in the imperial capital, Meihua Home. This hospital focused on high-end medical examinations and health care. At the same time, they also had very advanced DNA identification technology. They had a long-term partnership with Johns Hopkins Hospital, the world's top hospital in the United States. He Zhichu was very familiar with the director, Dr. Douglas. He had also been one of the hospital's donors. "Dear Mr. He, it's nice to see you again." Dr. Douglas was a plump Caucasian woman in her 50s. She was very kind and kind. She turned to look at Gu Nianji and asked He Zhichu, "Who is this?" He Zhichu put both hands in his trouser pockets and said coolly, "She is my student, Mrs. Douglas. I have a dental record and some blood samples here. Can you help me test them?" "Okay, Mr. He. How do you want to test them?" Dr. Douglas looked at Gu Nianji. "Is it related to your student?" He Zhichu nodded. "I want you to test these dental records and blood samples to see if they have anything to do with my student." Dr. Douglas often did DNA testing and identification, so she understood He Zhichu's intention immediately. In addition to DNA, dental records were also an important method for identity verification. Dr. Douglas nodded and took Gu Nianji's hand. She smiled widely. "Little classmate, this way. My name is Gu Nianji. You can call me Little Gu. Gu Nianji quickly said her name. Since Hijichu didn't say anything, she could only say it herself. Okay, Little Gu. Dr. Douglas readily agreed. Come with me. She took Gu Nianji to the lab and first gave her an X-ray and took her dental records. Then she took a drop of blood from her fingertip for a DNA test. Okay, you can leave now. I still have something to discuss with Dr. Douglas. Hijichu raised his chin at Gu Nianji. Wait for me outside. Okay. Gu Nianji walked out nonchalantly. She took her phone and sat in the reception room outside. When she saw that there was Wi-Fi, she immediately connected it to play games. In Dr. Douglas's office, Hijichu sat in front of her and said sternly, Dr. Douglas, I chose your hospital for this test because I value your hospital's guarantee of absolute privacy. Dr. Douglas immediately said, I understand, Mr. He. All the records here will be returned to you after the test, including Miss Gu's blood sample and dental records. It was easy talking to someone who understood. Hijichu chose Dr. Douglas because he knew that she was only good at DNA testing and identification, but her medical skills were average. He didn't need to worry about her finding out anything. Thank you for your understanding, Dr. Douglas. I hope you can keep this a secret. Hijichu pushed a confidentiality agreement over. Sign this and everything will be fine. Dr. Douglas glanced at the agreement and couldn't help but say, the compensation for breach of contract is astronomical. Mr. E, do you not trust me that much? I trust you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought her here for the test. There are so many hospitals and clinics in the world, but I only chose yours. This is enough to show my trust. But trust is one thing, it's better to go through legal procedures. I'm sure you understand that. As long as you don't reveal my students' privacy, there won't be any problems. Hijichu spoke with such certainty that Dr. Douglas was completely confused. She signed the confidentiality agreement without even realizing it. She smiled wryly and said, since you're so cautious, I can't take any risks. How about this? You wait here and watch me do the tests until the results come out. How about that? Normally this kind of test was done by the lab staff, but Hijichu was so cautious and Dr. Douglas personally signed the confidentiality agreement. She really couldn't take any risks. This was also Hijichu's original intention. He wouldn't be at ease until he saw it with his own eyes. Of course, no problem. How long will it take? I'll do it myself and make sure all the equipment is in place. It'll take about 6 hours. Dr. Douglas looked at the clock on the wall. It's 12:30 now, so the results should be out by 6:30 at night. What she needed to do was verify that the blood sample and dental records Hijichu brought were the same person as Gu Nianji. So in addition to testing Hijichu's blood sample and dental records, she also needed to test Gu Nianji's and compare the two results. Because they were two experiments of the same nature, two machines could be used at the same time to save half the time. Otherwise, 6 hours wouldn't be enough. Gu Nianji was so engrossed in playing games in the reception room that she forgot the time. By the time she felt her neck ache, she realized that 2 hours had passed and Hijichu still hadn't come out. This was the first update. There would be an extra update at 7 p.m. Thank you for the He's Jade gift yesterday. Thank you for everyone's gifts. Thank you for the group kisses. Thank you for the double monthly passes. Oh, and oh. Chapter 487. Why wasn't it out yet? Gu Nianji's phone was almost out of battery. She took out the charger from her backpack and went to the guest room to look for a plug. She texted Hijichu, Professor He, do you have anything else? Hijichu was sitting in Dr. Douglas's lab at the moment. He watched Dr. Douglas perform tests and record data as he checked his work email. When Gu Nianji's text came in, he immediately saw it. He hesitated for a moment before texting her back. There are still 4 hours. Do you want to go back to school first or do you want to wait here? Gu Nianji stared at her phone in disbelief. She still had to wait for 4 hours. What about dinner? Gu Nianji felt a little hungry. She paced around the guest room and thought that if she went back to school now, she would be delayed for an hour. She would have to take a public bus and transfer to the subway to get back to school. If she had to come back, it would only take 2 hours to go back and forth. What was the point of going through all that trouble? She didn't want to go back to school or stay there. She opened the search function on her phone and saw a Starbucks nearby. She texted Hijichu, Professor He, I'm going out for a walk. I'll be back in 4 hours, okay? Where are you going? Hijichu was unhappy and changed his mind. He continued texting her, come in and see how Dr. Douglas performs the tests. You saw it with your own eyes, so you won't doubt it, right? Gu Nianji was speechless at Hijichu's stubbornness, but she couldn't think of any other reason to refute him. Also, Hijichu's caution made her curious. Was there really something between her and Gu Yenran that couldn't be told? But if that was the case, why did Gu Yenran act like she didn't know her? If Gu Nianji really was her sister and had only been lost when she was 12, then how could Gu Yenran not recognize her? She didn't go missing when she was a baby. Gu Nianji pouted and sent a simple text. Okay. Come to Dr. Douglas's lab. Hijichu texted back. Gu Nianji arrived at Dr. Douglas's lab and knocked on the door. Hijichu got up to open the door for her and stepped aside to let her in. After Gu Nianji entered, she walked to Dr. Douglas's side and watched her perform the tests. She liked it very much and was very interested in it. She even asked all sorts of questions while Dr. Douglas was waiting for the data. Gu Nianji didn't major in science at university, but that didn't stop her from being interested in it. She also had excellent hands-on skills. After watching from the side for a while, she was able to help Dr. Douglas with some simple experiments. Little Gu, you really are a genius. Dr. Douglas was pleasantly surprised and said with a smile, there's a white coat over there. Go, put it on and help me with the experiment. Hijichu would be more at ease if Gu Nianji did it herself, right? Dr. Douglas looked at Hijichu inquiringly. Hijichu nodded slightly. Nianji helped Dr. Douglas well. Don't be naughty. Gu Nianji rolled her eyes inwardly. Naughty? She had stopped being naughty 800 years ago. Because there was something to do, Gu Nianji didn't feel like waiting was very boring. She wore Dr. Douglas's white lab coat and walked among the instruments. She occasionally stopped to make notes and bring the data to Dr. Douglas to ask if there was anything she didn't understand. Although it was her first time doing experiments, her intuition was very sharp and her hands were very smooth. Some of the parts that required precise hand gestures were demonstrated by Dr. Douglas once, and Gu Nianji was able to accurately repeat them. Hijichu looked up from his phone and looked deeply at Gu Nianji, who was completely focused. His lips involuntarily curved into a knowing smile. This Nianji was his Nianji. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the afterglow of the setting sun shone through the snow-white windows of the laboratory. Gu Nianji put the last test tube into the DNA PCR and clapped her hands. Dr. Douglas, is there anything else? It's all done. Dr. Douglas smiled. That's all. The results will be out in an hour and a half. Come, let's order some takeout. What do you want to eat? Gu Nianji really felt hungry and immediately said, I want shrimp, fresh meat dumplings and some fruits. Do you have cantaloupe? Dr. Douglas laughed. Little Gu, aren't you afraid of getting fat? You're eating so much? Not much. Gu Nianji looked at Hijichu. Is it a lot? Dr. Douglas took out the phone to order and said, I never eat carbohydrates at night. I only eat vegetables and fruits and I have to eat them raw. Gu Nianji smiled sheepishly and shook her head. She didn't eat what rabbits ate. Hijichu ate even less at night. Most of the time, he finished with a glass of red wine. However, seeing Gu Nianji's appetite, he also said, I also want shrimp, fresh meat dumplings and cantaloupe. 20 minutes later, the takeout arrived. The three of them ate dinner in the small room in the laboratory. Because she had worked all afternoon, Gu Nianji was really hungry and ate a lot. However, she ate with great manners. Although she was hungry, she didn't wolf down her food. Dr. Douglas was secretly amazed and couldn't help being more polite and affectionate to Gu Nianji. Little Gu, where did you grow up? The way you eat, you look like a princess. Gu Nianji swallowed the last mouthful of fresh meat dumplings and rinsed her mouth with water before smiling. Dr. Douglas, I grew up here. Because the person who brought me up was a soldier, he was very strict with discipline, so I was trained to be like this. If you think this is a princess, I don't think the real princesses in Europe would agree. Dr. Douglas laughed at her. Seeing that she was enjoying the food, he ordered dessert and ice cream for her. The three of them ate for more than an hour. The atmosphere was very cheerful and warm. After dinner, Dr. Douglas clapped his hands. Mr. He, it's time. Let's go see the results. Hijichu nodded. He was still as aloof as ever as he followed Dr. Douglas into the laboratory. Gu Nianji also followed. She watched closely as Dr. Douglas took out the things from the equipment. The developed pictures were hung on the special frame in the laboratory. There were also the experimental data reports printed out in triplicate for each of them. As Dr. Douglas looked at the data and pictures, she kept exclaiming, Oh my lord! She looked at the pictures, then at Gu Nianji. She turned to Hijichu and said, Mr. He, the blood sample and dental records you brought over are exactly the same as little Gu's blood and dental records. They are the same person. Look at the data. That's impossible. Gu Nianji blurted out. Her heart skipped a beat and she leaned back against the wall of the laboratory. She instinctively wanted to run away but realized there was nowhere to hide. Hijichu stared at her. There was a hint of pain and hurt in his eyes. Nianji, you did the experiments yourself. I got the things myself. You still don't believe me? It was the next morning. Tomorrow was Monday, right? Remember to vote for me. Chapter 488. I don't believe you, Gu Nianji blurted out. Gu Nianji blurted out, then saw the pain and hurt in Hijichu's eyes. She immediately felt guilty, knowing that she had spoken too hastily and arbitrarily. Hijichu had put in so much effort. Even if he hadn't done much, he had still put in a lot of effort. Why did she have to be so hurtful? From the corner of her eye, she saw Dr. Douglas's curious gaze drifting between her and Hijichu. She quickly lowered her head and pursed her lips before whispering, Professor He, there's something I want to talk to you about. Dr. Douglas understood and immediately said, I have to get off work now. Do you want to go downstairs first? Hijichu nodded and took the blood sample, dental records, and today's test results from Dr. Douglas. He put them in the briefcase he had brought with him and walked out with Gu Nianji. They got into Hijichu's Maserati and didn't speak at first. The atmosphere in the car was a bit tense. When the car got onto the highway and merged into the traffic, Hijichu finally turned the steering wheel and looked straight ahead. He said coldly, Speak. Gu Nianji was speechless. Why not? Hijichu glanced at her, his expression cold and indifferent. He looked as if his kindness had been taken for granted. Gu Nianji composed herself and rubbed her watch with her fingers. She thought about how to say it without revealing what happened with Hua Xiaoheng and still express her intentions. Professor He, are you sure I'm Gu Yanran's sister? But why didn't Gu Yanran take the initiative to investigate our relationship? Why did Professor He do it instead? Gu Nianji finally decided to start with Gu Yanran. Gu Yanran had seen her and knew her, but she had never felt even the slightest bit of sisterly love for her. Again, she was saved by Hua Xiaoheng when she was 12, not 2. If she was Gu Yanran's sister, why didn't Gu Yanran say anything about it? Other than saying she had a sister named Gu Nianji, there was nothing else. That was a pretty sharp question. Hijichu's mood improved a bit. He glanced at Gu Nianji and said casually, So you know I'm the one doing the investigating. You're not so heartless. Gu Nianji was speechless. Please, Professor He, don't be so sarcastic. Can't we talk properly? Gu Nianji angrily turned her head to look out the window. She had a look that said, I'll ignore you if you don't talk nicely. What's wrong? Are you angry? Hijichu turned to glance at her and reached out to rub her head. Little girl, you're still so hot-tempered. Humph. Gu Nianji pushed Hijichu's hand away and said angrily, Professor He, don't try to smooth things over. You haven't answered my question yet. Hijichu smiled and retracted his hand. He continued to hold the steering wheel with both hands and looked at the road ahead. On the highway of the imperial capital, there was still a traffic jam at this time. They didn't drive fast and moved along with the traffic at the speed of a turtle. Row after row of headlights slid past him, forming a long corridor of light. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Then let me ask you, why don't you believe that you're Gu Yanran's sister? I got this information from Gu Yanran's younger sister, Gu Nianji's previous family doctor and dentist. How do you explain that they have your blood samples and dental records? Don't tell them that I gave it to them. I can swear on my life that I absolutely didn't tamper with it. Hijichu said firmly and was more serious than ever. Gu Nianji hesitated. If Hua Xiaoheng had said this, she would definitely believe him. But she was still in the stage of half believing and half doubting Hijichu. But she couldn't say that she didn't believe him completely. After all, during this period of time, Hijichu had already proven that he was also someone she could trust. It wasn't easy to build the foundation of trust, but it only took one thing, one sentence, and one opportunity to destroy it. But, Gu Nianji stuttered. She really wanted to say that Gu Yanran wasn't related to her by blood, but if she said that, she would betray Hua Xiaoheng's side of the situation. So she absolutely couldn't say that. Her mind turned 1,000 times, but it all happened in the blink of an eye. Gu Nianji finally found the perfect excuse. But Professor He, why do you need to verify the family doctors and dentists' records? Why don't you directly verify the blood relationship between me and Gu Yanran? Isn't that easier and more direct? And it's even more convenient. You are very familiar with Gu Yanran, and you are also my instructor. As long as you get a sample of Gu Yanran's blood or even a strand of hair, you can immediately test the DNA, right? She finally got to the point. Hijichu looked at her with approval. His fingers lightly tapped on the steering wheel. Yes, why do I have to go so far and not directly verify the blood relationship between you and Gu Yenran, but verify the relationship between you and Gu Nianji from the Gu family? What? His voice was originally cold and aloof, but when he said it slowly, there was an indescribable softness to it. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat, and her brain immediately started working. She murmured, "Not verify the blood relationship between me and Gu Yenran, but directly verify the relationship between me and Gu Nianji from the Gu family. This means, I understand." Gu Nianji's eyes lit up. She turned to Hijichu and said eagerly, "Is it that Gu Nianji from the Gu family has no blood relationship with that Gu Yenran at all?" Only this explanation could provide the perfect footnote for Hijichu's actions. Therefore, Hijichu had always wanted to prove that Gu Nianji was the Gu Nianji that the Gu family had lost, and not that she was related to Gu Yenran by blood. Otherwise, why would Hijichu go so far and ignore what was near? Hijichu glanced at her with a smile. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes were indescribably flirtatious. "Yes, you're quite smart. You've finally overcome this hurdle." But Gu Nianji was confused again. If Gu Nianji from the Gu family isn't related to Gu Yenran by blood, then how are they sisters? What does that have to do with anything? Who says that people can't be sisters if they aren't related by blood? Hijichu snickered and tapped his fingers on the steering wheel. "You don't need me to teach you that, do you? It's not uncommon for two sisters in a family to not be related by blood, but still legally part of the family, right? Nianji, don't tell others that you're my student in the future." How embarrassing. Gu Nianji blushed. She had indeed been too stubborn when it came to her relationship with Gu Yenran. Hijichu's words seemed to have opened the door to a whole new world. She suddenly saw the light before her eyes. Knowing that Gu Yenran wasn't related to her by blood, Gu Nianji felt like a huge weight had been lifted from her heart. As for the legally recognized sisterhood, that was completely unrelated by blood, there were only a few situations. It could be a sisterhood brought about by a second marriage, or a sisterhood brought about by adoption. No matter what the situation was, they weren't blood-related sisters. Without a natural bond, she didn't need to care what Gu Yenran could do to her. Gu Nianji rested her chin on her hand and rested her elbow on the end of the car door. She said thoughtfully, "Then Professor, he is so sure that I'm Gu Nianji from the Gu family? But why didn't they look for me before?" Hijichu sighed. "Nianji, you'll have to find out for yourself. I don't want to do this kind of useless work. You won't believe me anyway." Gu Nianji knew she had hurt Hijichu when she blurted out that she didn't believe him. She withdrew her hand and twisted her fingers nervously as she looked at Hijichu timidly. "Professor I'm sorry." Gu Nianji was so careful with her expression. Hijichu's heart ached. He didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, he finally said in a hoarse voice, "You don't have to apologize to me. Think carefully about what you want to do. Do you believe this evidence?" Gu Nianji looked down. Her fingers rubbed the watch Hua Xiaoheng had given her again. She couldn't come to a conclusion at the moment. She still had to talk to Hua Xiaoheng about this. The direction Hua Xiaoheng and his team had been looking in didn't seem right. They had verified that Gu Nianji and Gu Yenran weren't blood-related, so they assumed that she wasn't a member of the Gu family. They didn't continue investigating Gu Yenran. However, Hijichu had found another way. He had started with Gu Nianji's childhood medical records and dentistry to find out that the Gu Nianji from the Gu family in Barbados was the same person as the Gu Nianji from the Huaxia Empire. If she really was that Gu Nianji, then how did she come from a small Central American country like Barbados to the Huaxia Empire? Did she come alone or did she come with someone else? These things lingered in her mind like nodes in a fog. She just had to wait for the fog to dissipate for the nodes to connect. Hijichu didn't say anything else. He drove in silence all the way back to B University and dropped Gu Nianji off at her dorm. "Nianji, I'll give you a day off tomorrow. Go through this information and slowly digest it." Hijichu's voice softened. "But you can't be sad for more than a day. It's already in the past. There's no point in looking into the past. What's important is how you choose in the future." Gu Nianji nodded and hugged the things Hijichu gave her. She couldn't wait to return to the dorm and contact Hua Xiaoheng immediately. She had so much to say to him. Hijichu sighed as he watched Gu Nianji hurriedly run into the dormitory building. He leaned against the steering wheel and stared fixedly in the direction Gu Nianji ran off to. He stared fixedly for a long time before starting the car and driving away. Gu Nianji slammed open the dorm door and saw that Ma Qiqi wasn't in the room. She had probably gone to study. She sighed in relief. Right now, she really didn't want to talk to anyone but Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji entered her room and locked it. She took out her phone and dialed Hua Xiaoheng's personal number. It rang a few times but no one picked up. What's going on? Gu Nianji looked at her watch. It should be past 7 in the morning in Barbados. According to Hua Xiaoheng's daily routine, he should be up already. Gu Nianji had no choice but to call Zhao Liangzi. Zhao Liangzi quickly picked up and asked in a brisk voice, "Nianji, why are you looking for your brother Zhe?" Gu Nianji didn't have time to joke with him and immediately said, "Brother Zhe, where's Hua Xiao? I have something really important to talk to him about." Hua Xiao. Hua Xiao went out. Zhao Liangzi was grinning from ear to ear. What is it? Nianji also needs to check on his attendance? What attendance? Gu Nianji was anxious. Brother Zhe, I really have something really important to talk to Hua Xiao about. It has to do with the Gu family in Barbados. Oh. Zhao Liangzi stopped smiling. Really? What news do you have? It's news from Professor He. Gu Nianji didn't say much to Zhao Liangzi. Hurry and get Hua Xiao on the phone. I've called a few times but no one is picking up. This is the 3,200-word first update. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today is Monday, so recommendation votes are very important. There will be an extra update at 7 p.m. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 489. Teaching her how to be a good person. 3K3. Professor, he told you? Zhao Liangzi grew serious. Are you sure? Does it really have something to do with the Gus in Barbados? Can he be trusted? They had deep suspicions about He Jichu, but they didn't let Gu Nianji know. Gu Nianji wasn't one of them, so there was a lot of information they couldn't reveal to her. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and said slowly, I can definitely trust him. Brother Zhe, can I speak to Hua Xiao now? There was already a hint of impatience in her voice. She really wasn't in the mood to joke around with Zhao Liangzi right now. She couldn't wait to share the truth she had been pursuing for 6 or 7 years with Hua Xiaoheng. She also wanted to hear his opinions. Zhao Liangzi sensed Gu Nianji's impatience and was a bit surprised. It seemed like the problem was really serious. He thought about it and said, Hua Xiao went out to meet people this morning and didn't bring his personal phone. Why don't you call his work number? He went out to work so early in the morning? Gu Nianji's eyes widened in shock. It's only a little past 7 in the morning over there, right? Hua Xiao isn't even at the military base. Why would he wake up so early to go to work? Zhao Liangzi chuckled. It's to accommodate Miss Gu's schedule. Hua Xiao made an appointment to meet with her yesterday to discuss some business. Miss Gu said she's only free during her morning run and morning tea, so Hua Xiao went to see her early in the morning. Gu Nianji furrowed her brows and muttered, Is running time and drinking morning tea time for business? He's so arrogant. Haha Nianji, what are you talking about? Zhao Liangzi couldn't tell Gu Yanran what was going on with her. The military had already gotten involved, so it had changed from a private matter to a business matter. Gu Nianji sighed softly and pushed away the unhappiness in her chest. She said to Zhao Liangzi, Then I'll call Hua Xiao's work number. Zhao Liangzi knew Gu Nianji was very sensible and would never call Hua Xiao's work number without their permission unless it was absolutely necessary. Zhao Liangzi couldn't bear to see her being so obedient. He hesitated for a moment before whispering to her, Mr. Hua has a very troublesome matter to deal with right now. Nianji, bear with it. If there's anything you can't handle, tell your brother Zhe and brother Xiong. We'll definitely be able to help you. Gu Nianji smiled and walked to the dormitory window to look at the night view of the campus. She tried to calm her nerves. Brother Zhe, I will not cause you any trouble. I know that Hua Xiao went to Barbados and met Gu Yanran. This matter is closely related to the Gu family and Gu Yanran. She didn't mention that it was closely related to her, because Zhao Liangzi had already hinted that she probably had some personal matters that she couldn't deal with, which was why she was looking for Hua Xiaoheng. She didn't want him to misunderstand more. Yes, I understand. Zhao Liangzi hung up and poured himself a cup of coffee uneasily. He said to Yin Shixiang, who was taking notes on the computer, Nianji called Hua Xiao urgently just now. She said it had something to do with the Gus. Do you think Professor He really told her something? Professor He? Yin Shixiang turned around in surprise and stood up from his computer. Are you sure? Did Nianji say anything? She didn't go into details. She just wanted to see Hua Xiao. Zhao Liangzi hit his forehead with his fist. I have a feeling that something big is about to happen. Let's wait and see. Yin Shixiang said calmly, let's just do our jobs. If there are any bigger changes, it's not something we can control. Yeah, I'm just too concerned. Zhao Liangzi finished his coffee in one gulp and returned to his computer to work. Only work could calm him down. At the same time, in another seaside villa of the Gu's, Gu Yanran was wearing a snow-white tennis shirt and a similarly snow-white cotton headband around her forehead. She was wearing dark blue tennis shoes and was sitting in the flowers on her balcony eating breakfast. In the distance was the azure Caribbean Sea, and there were seabirds circling in the blue sky. Because it was far away, the noise of the waves couldn't be heard at all. She could only see the beauty and majesty of the sea. Hua Xiaoheng wore a pair of sunglasses and crossed his arms as he stood on the balcony and gazed into the distance. He couldn't stop praising the beautiful scenery. Miss Gu really knows how to enjoy life. This villa is surrounded by mountains and green water. The distant sea breeze is blocked by the mountains over there and the moisture from the sea is filtered. It's indeed a great place for a family vacation. Hua Xiao really knows how to appreciate things. Gu Yanran elegantly used a silver knife and fork to take a bite of bacon. She paired it with a few fresh red grapes from her vineyard and ate it with relish. Hua Xiao, don't you want to eat some? Although Hua Xiaoheng didn't care, there was no trace of impatience in his eyes. He said calmly, "No need. I had breakfast this morning and am already very full." What a pity. I even specially prepared some breakfast for Hua Xiao. Gu Yanran shook her head regretfully. This Kobe steak is only medium rare and melts in your mouth. Hua Xiao really doesn't want to try it? Hua Xiaoheng shook his head and walked over to sit across from Gu Yanran. Can we talk about business now? May I ask where Mr. Gu is? When do you plan to leave? Gu Yanran smiled slyly, revealing two deep dimples on her face. Mr. Hua, can't you see that I'm eating breakfast? She was the one who said that there was only breakfast for Hua Xiaoheng to talk about business. Now she was the one who said that they couldn't talk about business during breakfast. Was she messing with him? Hua Xiaoheng was a bit angry, but he didn't show it at all. He still nodded politely and said, "Okay, then we'll talk after breakfast?" "Yes, it won't take too long." Gu Yanran secretly thought that it wouldn't be that easy. She obviously slowed down her eating speed. Whenever Hua Xiaoheng looked over, she would look up and smile sweetly at him. "You're anxious, aren't you?" Hua Xiaoheng could tell that she was stalling, so he took out his phone and played with it. He said slowly, "There's no rush. Take your time. There are blue skies and white clouds here. The sea breeze and waves are so nice. I can take my time to enjoy the scenery." He had a carefree expression on his face, and even his tone had some of the playboy aura of the imperial capital's officials. Gu Yanran was very surprised by Hua Xiaoheng's behavior. She glanced at him and slowly finished the bacon before starting to eat the porridge. Just when they were at a stalemate, Hua Xiaoheng's phone rang. His heart skipped a beat. This was his work phone. Who would be calling at a time like this? But he could use this call as an excuse to leave for a while. Hua Xiaoheng unlocked the phone and saw that it was Gu Nianji's number. He was even more surprised, but he still stood up and said to Gu Yanran, "Excuse me, I have to take this call." Take it. It's fine. I haven't finished my breakfast yet." Gu Yanran winked at him and smiled happily. Gu Yanran truly felt that she had vented her anger to be able to make Hua Xiaoheng, who had been so harsh to her a few days ago, behave like this. She had never met a man who completely ignored her in her entire life, but he just happened to be so right up her alley. Hua Xiaoheng walked to the balcony where he had been standing and answered the call. What's wrong? Something big must have happened to Gu Nianji for him to call his work phone at this time. Gu Nianji heard Hua Xiaoheng's tone and knew there was someone next to him. She immediately remembered that it was probably Gu Yanran. Her voice was much quieter. "Hua Xiao, is it convenient to talk? It's very important. Otherwise, I wouldn't be calling your number at this time. I've called your private number many times but no one picked up." Hua Xiaoheng put one hand in his trouser pocket and stood on the balcony with his side facing Gu Yanran. His voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. His tone was very normal. "Yeah, go ahead." Gu Nianji took a deep breath and recounted what had happened that afternoon. Finally she said, "At 6:30 p.m. just half an hour ago I received the results. It proves that Gu Nianji and I from the Gu family in Barbados are the same person." Hua Xiaoheng was shocked by this news. Although he remained expressionless, his heart was in turmoil. He closed his eyes and took his other hand out of his trouser pocket to rub his forehead. Then he paced back and forth on the balcony near the railing as he digested this important news. Gu Nianji didn't hear Hua Xiaoheng's response for a long time. She thought the call had been disconnected. She checked her phone several times to make sure there was nothing wrong with it before she heard Hua Xiaoheng's voice from the phone. "Do you still have the test materials?" "Yes, Professor, he brought them back for me. After a pause, Gu Nianji continued, all the experiments were conducted under Professor He's and my personal observation. Also, many of the experiments were personally conducted by me under Dr. Douglas's guidance. So the authenticity can be guaranteed. Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and stopped calling. Instead, he texted Gu Nianji. But you and Gu Yanran really aren't related by blood. What's going on? Gu Nianji also texted him. Even if they aren't related by blood, they can still be related by blood. According to the law, a sisterhood from a second marriage as well as a sisterhood from adoption is legal. Hua Xiaoheng immediately understood that they had made a mistake in their previous investigation. Also, they really didn't expect that although Gu Yanran and Gu Nianji were sisters, they weren't related by blood. He turned around to look at Gu Yanran, who was eating breakfast. He didn't expect Gu Yanran to also be looking at him. Seeing him look over, Gu Yanran gave him a bright smile and waved her hand. Mr. Hua, you really don't want to have breakfast together? Her voice was very loud, so Gu Nianji heard it. However, Gu Nianji was completely calm now. She was concerned about Hua Xiaoheng's reaction to this, not Gu Yanran. Hua Xiaoheng immediately made a decision. Hurry up and fax all the information to little Zay. I'll go back immediately. After confirming it, I might need your help with some things. Don't hang up. We'll talk as we walk. Hua Xiaoheng pressed the pause button and walked to Gu Yanran's dining table. He spread his hands. Miss Gu, I have something urgent to attend to. I don't have time now. That's all for today. Goodbye. Before Gu Yanran could react, Hua Xiaoheng had already left her house. Looking at Hua Xiaoheng's tall and handsome back, Gu Yanran frowned. What urgent matter was it? Could it be more important than her father's whereabouts? Weren't these people in a hurry to get her father to their country? As soon as Hua Xiaoheng sat in the car, he told her about how Gu Yanran had been stalling and refusing to hand over Gu Xiangguan. Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng's thoughts were very in sync. She immediately reacted and said anxiously, what does she want? Hua Xiao, let me go. I'll ask her for my father's whereabouts. If she dares to refuse, I'll teach her a lesson. This is the first chapter of 3,300 words. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today is Monday, so recommendation votes are very important. Today is a big chapter. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 490. Their hearts are connected, begging for monthly votes. Gu Nianji's resolute tone made Hua Xiaoheng feel better. If Gu Nianji's identity was confirmed to be the Gu from the Gu family in Barbados who had disappeared 7 years ago, then Gu Nianji would have every reason to ask Gu Yanran to tell her the whereabouts of her father, Gu Xiangguan. Gu Yanran obviously didn't want to go to the Huaxia Empire, so Gu Nianji could stall the Huaxia Imperial military, but not Gu Nianji. Of course, the prerequisite was that Gu Nianji had to prove her identity. This was the set of data that He Zhichu had helped her obtain, as well as the identification done by Dr. Douglas. Even if it was taken to the FBI, it could be used as evidence to prove her identity. Hua Xiaoheng's problem in Barbados was easily solved. He held the phone to his ear and didn't speak for a while. He looked out at the tropical scenery outside the car. Greenery was everywhere, and when he looked up, he could see the bright sun. His hard and solemn heart was melted by the sun outside the car, and a feeling of fullness and warmth spread outwards. It was just like the day Gu Nianji had forced him to eat a piece of sweet pastry. He didn't like it, but after she stuffed it in his mouth, he felt the sweetness seep into his heart. Gu Nianji waited for a long time but didn't hear Hua Xiaoheng's reply. She thought he didn't agree and was worried that his pride was hurt, so she quickly said, Hua Xiao, you don't want me to help you? But this matter is also related to me, so I'm not helping you. I'm actually helping myself. Her thoughtful words made Hua Xiaoheng feel even more warm. He even felt sorry for Gu Nianji's careful consideration. He wouldn't admit that he actually liked Gu Nianji's stubbornness. Unfortunately, he hadn't seen it since she became sensible. Hua Xiaoheng held the phone and sighed deeply. He said in a steady voice, I'm very happy that you're willing to help me. Also, I wanted you to help me in the first place, so we thought the same thing. It was Gu Nianji's turn to be speechless for a long time. Her heart also felt numb and full from the inside out. It was just like that year when she went to the hot spring resort with Hua Xiaoheng to soak in the hot spring. That warmth was like a lover's embrace, and it was irresistible. Ever since she was a young girl, her eyes had secretly followed Hua Xiaoheng's figure. However, he was too mature, too capable, and much older than her. Of course, he was also much more experienced. He had always been someone she looked up to. Even after they got together, she was still trembling with fear, worried that she wasn't good enough for him. This was the first time she felt that their hearts were connected, The beauty of two hearts is one. Gu Nianji felt that the side of her face that was close to the phone was so hot that it was about to ignite. She was afraid that she would burn if a single spark landed on it. People say that if you give them a little sunshine they will shine, but if you give them a little spark, they will burn. Gu Nianji unconsciously looked up and saw the mirror in front of her. She also saw the girl smiling foolishly in the mirror. She couldn't help but burst out laughing and lay on the table, her shoulders shaking. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's mouth curled up when he heard her laugh. He asked gently, "What are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at myself." Gu Nianji stopped laughing and didn't dare to look at the mirror again. She was also glad that Hua Xiaoheng wasn't by her side right now. He didn't need to see her silly expression. Otherwise it would ruin her image. She hoped that in Hua Xiaoheng's heart she would always be the smart and flawless Gu Nianji. However, Hua Xiaoheng understood and refused to let her go. He chuckled lowly and said, "Turn on the video call." Gu Nianji's smile froze on her face. "What? I haven't washed my face yet. I haven't dressed up yet. I just came back from outside and I'm covered in dust. No, don't turn on the video call. I want to see you." Hua Xiaoheng's voice was low and gentle like never before. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangze, who were sitting in the front seat, felt the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. They resisted the urge to turn around to see if the chief had been replaced in the back seat. Gu Nianji couldn't resist Hua Xiaoheng's tone at all. She thought that Hua Xiaoheng must have cursed her. She turned on the video call on her phone as if possessed and pointed it at herself. She even forgot to turn on the photo. Hua Xiaoheng propped one arm on the back window and held his phone with the other. He lowered his eyes to look at the screen and saw a beautiful girl trying her best to hold back a smile, but two faint dimples appeared on both sides of her cute, curvy lips. This was Nianji. Is Nianji. Hua Xiaoheng's thumb fondly stroked the phone screen as if caressing her cheek. "Pretty girl?" Hua Xiaoheng sent a text over. Gu Nianji was so happy that she laughed out loud. Her clear and melodious laughter was very infectious. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangze couldn't help smiling when they heard it. They turned around to look at Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng stopped smiling and ended the video call. He continued to call Gu Nianji. "Go fax the information now. I want it when I get to the hotel. Can you do that?" "Yes." Gu Nianji saw that the video was suddenly cut off and Hua Xiaoheng's voice had returned to his usual unhurried tone. She knew that there was an outsider present. She also stopped smiling and promised Hua Xiaoheng seriously. "Okay, then hurry up." Hua Xiaoheng hung up and put his phone away as if nothing had happened. He said to the driver in front, "Please hurry up. I'm in a hurry." Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangze, who were sitting in the front, finally sat up straight and began to prepare. When they returned to the hotel, Zhao Liangze had just set up the encrypted fax receiver when he received the data from Gu Nianji. Zhao Liangze quickly sent it to the cloud system for Hua Xiaoheng to log in and take a look. Hua Xiaoheng looked at it for a full 2 hours before he finished reading all the information and data. Of course he read it more carefully. He specifically looked up the terms and terms he didn't understand. He tried to understand all the relevant professional terms in the shortest time possible. "Hua Xiao, is Nianji really from the Gu family of Barbados?" Yin Shixiang propped both hands on the desk in front of Hua Xiaoheng and asked in shock. "But we checked last time. She and Gu Yanran's DNA is not related by blood. Who said only related by blood can be legally recognized as sisters?" Hua Xiaoheng smiled faintly and repeated Gu Nianji's words. "We don't need to prove that she and Gu Yanran are biological sisters. We only need to prove that she is Gu Nianji from the Gu family of Barbados." Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangze thought about it for a while before they understood this complicated point of view. They nodded vigorously and said repeatedly, "Hua Xiao is so smart. How did you think of this? We were really too stubborn before." "It wasn't me." Hua Xiaoheng ignored his subordinate's flattery. It was Nianji who thought of it. Of course, she thought of it under Professor He's suggestion. "Oh? Professor He again? He clearly knew all this. Why didn't he just tell us?" Yin Shixiang was furious and slammed the desk. "Look at how many twists and turns we took. How many twists and turns we took. How is this twists and turns? The path to finding the truth has always been complicated." Hua Xiaoheng disagreed. "Also, how can we trust He Jichu's words without reservation? We still need to verify it step by step, so we still have to do what needs to be done and walk the path that needs to be taken. Whether it's a straight path or a crooked one, it's best if we can reach the same destination in the end." "Roger, Chief." Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangze said loudly in understanding. "But Hua Xiao, this proof is enough for us. But can Barbados restore Gu Nianji's identity just like that? Zhao Liangzi printed out the data and passed it to Hua Xiaoheng. What else do we need to do? Hua Xiaoheng leaned back in the leather chair behind the desk and propped his chin up with one hand. He considered it for a while before saying, I'm afraid Nianji has to be present herself for this. Let Nianji come to Barbados? Good idea. Yin Shixiang clapped his hands. We need to catch Gu Yanran off guard. This woman doesn't want to go to our country. She only wants to go to America. We can't let her find another chance to delay. Yes, as long as Nianji's identity is proven, Gu Yanran can't make decisions for Gu Xiangwen alone. Zhao Liangzi followed. Nianji is already 18 years old and is fully capable of taking responsibility. As Gu Xiangwen's daughter, she can make half of Gu Xiangwen's decisions. More than half. Yin Shixiang sneered and crossed his arms as he looked around. Don't forget, Nianji isn't related to Gu Yanran by blood. So it's not certain who's really Gu Xiangwen's daughter. There's no need to doubt that. Zhao Liangzi thought about it. Although Gu Yanran isn't related to Nianji by blood, she should still be legally related to Nianji. I'll say this first, they don't need to be related by blood to be legally related to each other. That's not the same. Yin Shixiang objected. Let me ask you, if two daughters, one is biological and the other isn't, who do you think has the right to speak about Gu Xiangwen, regardless of adoption or other in-laws? Hua Xiaoheng looked down and thought about it for a while before giving instructions. Little Zhe, quickly contact the Wuxia Empire and ask them to arrange for Nianji to come to Barbados. Remember, use the fastest speed. Hua Xiaoheng looked at his watch. It's 9:30 in the morning in Barbados, so it should be 9:30 in the evening in our country. I want to see Gu Nianji at the Barbados airport at 9 o'clock tonight in Barbados, which is 9 o'clock tomorrow morning in our country. Send my message back without missing a single word. Tell them this is a military order, and if they're late, they'll be punished by military law. This is the first update. Remind them about the monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be an extra update at 7 o'clock p.m. Chapter 491. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Roger, Chief. Zhao Liangzi heard Hua Xiaoheng's commanding tone and instinctively stood on both feet in a military salute in response. Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at Yin Shixiang with a stern expression. Big Xiong, arrange for Nianji's escorts. Remember to keep it a secret and don't alert unrelated people. Roger, Chief. Yin Shixiang quickly followed Zhao Liangzi's salute and responded loudly. They immediately switched to work mode. Hua Xiaoheng was their general now and they were his soldiers. The general's orders had to be followed and completed unconditionally. If they couldn't complete it, they would be punished according to military law. 5 minutes later, General Ji of the Wuxia Imperial Military Supreme Council received an urgent secret message from Barbados in his office. General Ji was in the middle of a regular meeting when his personal secretary called him out of the conference room. Chief, Major General Hua sent an urgent secret message from Barbados. General Ji's expression was solemn as he took the secret message from the secretary. Tell the people in the conference room to adjourn today's meeting. I have something urgent to attend to. Write a report and send it to me. I'll be leaving now. He hurried back to his office and took out the password book from his safe. He compared it line by line and finally understood what Hua Xiaoheng meant. After reading the secret message, General Ji's heart felt like it was on a roller coaster. It went up and down and he felt like he was about to have a heart attack. Clutching his chest, he leaned back on the sofa and thought quietly for a while. He was very emotional. He didn't expect Gu Nianji to be Gu Xiangwen's daughter. He didn't expect she wasn't related to Gu Yanran at all. They were desperate for talent from Gu Xiangwen, but Gu Yanran was unwilling to fully cooperate with them. They could only feign civility with Gu Yanran and make concessions again and again, hoping that Gu Yanran would bring Gu Xiangwen to the Wuxia Empire to settle down. But if it was proven that Gu Nianji was Gu Xiangwen's youngest daughter, then what else did they have to worry about? With Hua Xiaoheng's influence on Gu Nianji, she would probably agree even if he asked her to give Gu Xiangwen to the military. General Ji rubbed his chin and suddenly smiled. Originally he had never agreed to Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji being together, but if Gu Nianji's father was Gu Xiangwen, then what was there to stop them? People like them only cared about profit. In the face of greater profit, anyone who dared to oppose would be a threat to the ultimate national interests of the Wuxia Empire. He didn't even need to do anything. The higher-ups in the military would tear them apart. The corners of General Ji's mouth curled up as he thought about it. He immediately made a decision and ordered the relevant departments to quickly process the paperwork for Gunyenji so that she could go to Barbados as soon as possible. The Wuxia Empire and Barbados had a mutual visa waiver agreement, so Gunyenji only needed to bring her passport and buy a plane ticket. At 10 p.m., Gunyenji had just finished washing up and was about to go to bed when Yin Shixiang called. "Nyenji, get up now and get ready to board the plane. I've already sent someone to bring your passport to the airport gate. You only need to bring your small bag. You don't need to bring any luggage. Wuxiao has already ordered people to buy daily necessities and clothes from Europe. Your new luggage should be here by the time you arrive in Barbados." Yin Shixiang explained everything clearly in a tone that left no room for discussion. He then asked her, "Did you hear that? This is Wuxiao's order. Military orders must be obeyed." Gunyenji had been with Wuxiaoheng for 6 years, so she knew this very well. She immediately sat up in bed and said nervously, "I heard that. I'll get up now and go to the airport. Who's waiting for me at the airport?" "You'll know when you get there." Yin Shixiang didn't say anything else. "The plane will take off in 30 minutes. Gunyenji couldn't help but wail. 30 minutes. It'll take me 30 minutes to get to the airport. Fan Jian is already waiting for you downstairs. He has 20 minutes to take you to the airport. If he doesn't make it, he'll be breaking military law." Yin Shixiang's voice was cold and bleak. It was a far cry from his usual cheerful tone. Gunyenji became even more nervous from his tone, but she knew the severity of the situation. She didn't complain and quickly hung up to get out of bed to get dressed. She carried her small backpack and only packed her wallet and keys. Gunyenji opened the door and left the dormitory without even saying goodbye to Ma Chichi. When she sat in Fan Jian's private car downstairs, she sent He Jichu and Ma Chichi a text message. She sent Ma Chichi a message saying that she had an emergency and needed to leave for a while. She asked for her help to apply for leave from the faculty. She sent He Jichu a direct request for leave. She only said that she had an emergency and didn't say where she was going. Ma Chichi saw her message and opened the door in shock. She knocked on Gunyenji's door and found that there was no one inside. "What's the rush? What happened?" Ma Chichi was very worried about Gunyenji, but she didn't pursue the matter. She only texted her back. "Have a safe trip. Come back soon." He Jichu was calling his family when he received Gunyenji's text. He knew where she was the moment he received Gunyenji's text. He thought about it and put his phone away. He also sent a message to his people to ask them to prepare a private plane. He was going back to South America the next day. It only took Gunyenji 20 minutes to get to the airport in Fan Jian's car. The people waiting for her at the gate were the military doctors she knew, Yi Zitan and Chen Lai. "Brother Chen? Dr. Yi? You're going to Barbados too?" Gunyenji was very surprised but also very happy. It was great that the people following her weren't strangers. Chen Lai nodded with a smile. "I had no choice. I was dragged out of bed in the middle of the night because of Wuxiao." He looked at Yi Zitan again. "Dr. Yi, are you tired? Are you hungry?" Yi Zitan shook her head. "Hurry up and get on the plane. It's just the 3 of us." They had special passes from the military and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so they didn't need to go through airport security. They directly boarded the plane through the VIP passage. The military was very generous this time and booked first-class seats for them. Of course, it was also because they were in such a hurry that only first-class seats were available. In order to be as secretive as possible, they didn't send a private plane to escort them. Instead, they used a civilian plane that had a secret connection with the Special Operations Forces. There were no direct flights to Barbados from the capital of the Wuxia Empire. Just like Wuxiaoheng's previous trip, they took a flight to Barbados via Cuba. Gunyenji, Chen Lai, and Yi Zitan got off the plane at 9:00 p.m. sharp in Barbados, which was also 9:00 a.m. the next day in the Wuxia Empire. Wuxiaoheng, Yin Shixiang, and Zhao Liangzi didn't show up at the airport. Gunyenji and the others found a taxi and went directly to the Wuxia Empire's consulate in Barbados. They didn't check into a local hotel. Wuxiaoheng and the others waited at the consulate. "Miss Gu, Mr. Chen, Miss Yi, this way please." The consulate staff smiled and led the 3 of them to the entrance of a conference room. The door to the conference room opened from the inside. Wuxiaoheng, Yin Shixiang, and Zhao Liangzi stood in the conference room with their hands folded behind their backs. They looked at the 3 of them calmly. "Wuxiao." Gunyenji beamed and quickly walked over to him. "I finally get to see you." Wuxiaoheng took her hand and looked at it. "You've lost weight. Was the flight tiring?" No, not at all. Did you lose weight?" "That's great. Gu Nianji suddenly felt the tiredness and nervousness from the flight dissipate. She grabbed Hua Xiaoheng's hand and didn't let go. Hua Xiao, I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat? The consulate made dumplings for you. They'll be serving them in a bit. Hua Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji's hand and walked into the conference room. Qinlai and Yi Zitan followed them in. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi waited behind them and closed the door for them. They stood at the door like two door guards. There were only 4 people in the small conference room: Hua Xiaoheng, Gu Nianji, Qinlai, and Yi Zitan. Hua Xiaoheng pulled Gu Nianji to sit next to him and looked up at Qinlai and Yi Zitan, who were sitting across from him. This is an urgent mission, so I'll make it short. Nianji, come with me later to prepare to meet the Barbados government officials. Qinlai and Dr. Yi, make a list. We're bringing a patient who has been in a vegetative state for 7 years back to the Wuxia Empire. What kind of medical equipment do we need? Qinlai rolled his eyes and snapped, What? You called me to Barbados so urgently just to bring a vegetative patient back to the Wuxia Empire? Don't you know that vegetative patients are in a vegetative state because they won't react no matter what you do to them? Why do you need medical equipment? Just carry him on the plane. This person is very important. We don't want any accidents along the way. Hua Xiaoheng paused and felt Gu Nianji's small hand suddenly twitch nervously in his palm. He held her hand, and his warm large palm enveloped her small hand, gradually calming her uneasy heart. When Gu Nianji felt better, Hua Xiaoheng said to Qinlai, Also, I suspect his condition is more complicated. It's not as simple as being in a vegetative state. We haven't seen him yet, so it's better to have you prepare more medical equipment just in case. Qinlai finally became interested. He crossed his hands and yawned. Okay, tell me the situation again. I'll make a list. I'm too tired today. Can I go to bed now? Go ahead. You and Dr. Yi can stay here. I'll take Nianji to do something. Hua Xiaoheng said as he stood up. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Qinlai's face. He nodded. Go do something. Do it well. This was the second update. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. The beginning of the year had been busy. This month would be much easier. Chapter 492. We're going on official business, not private business, Hua Xiaoheng retorted instinctively. Qinlai laughed so hard that he almost choked. He leaned on the table and said loudly, No one said you were going on private business. Why are you in such a hurry? Her other hand reflexively clenched into a fist. She wanted nothing more than to punch Qinlai's smirking face. Gu Nianji looked at Qinlai in confusion, then at Hua Xiaoheng. She asked curiously, Brother Qin, we're going to work. Why are you laughing? I'm not going to explain it to you. Hurry up and go work for Hua Xiao. Qinlai winked at Gu Nianji and pouted towards the door. Let's go. Ignore him. Hua Xiaoheng's face darkened as he grabbed Gu Nianji's hand tightly and pulled her out of the small conference room without looking back. Hey, don't walk so fast. There's still time to do something. You can do it a few more times. Ah. Qinlai's cheerful laughter stopped abruptly when he saw Yi Zitan's disapproving gaze. Oh, Li Yi, I was just joking with them. Qinlai scratched his head awkwardly, not knowing where to look. Yi Zitan shook her head and said softly, Dr. Qin, Nianji is still young. How can you make such a joke in front of her? It was just a spur of the moment. Qinlai's back was covered in sweat. He couldn't help but feel nervous in front of Yi Zitan. He had really forgotten himself just now. I was just trying to liven up the atmosphere, nothing else. Yi Zitan saw that Qinlai was blushing, so she didn't scold him anymore. She thoughtfully changed the topic. Dr. Qin, are you hungry? Hua Xiao had dumplings earlier. Oh yes, dumplings. There are dumplings. I'm really hungry. Qinlai wiped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief and hurriedly walked to the door. He said to Yin Shixiang, who was standing there, Big Xiong, do you have dumplings here? Won't Hua Xiao and Nianji have dumplings before going out? They still have something to do. The dumplings are ready. Please follow me. Yin Shixiang led Yi Zitan and Qinlai to the consulate's cafeteria and asked the chef on duty to make dumplings for them. Holding Gu Nianji's hand, Hua Xiaoheng walked out of the consulate. Outside the door, the night was in full swing. The starry sky shone brightly, and the faint sound of waves could be heard. The air was humid from the sea, and the melodious chirping of nightingales could be heard from time to time, adding to the quietness of the night. The two of them held hands as they walked along the brightly lit Embassy Street in Barbados at night. The gentle breeze blew on their faces, making them feel warm and moist, just like lovers who were deeply in love with each other. It was no wonder that people in the tropics were so passionate. It was because this kind of weather was suitable for love 365 days a year. Gu Nianji glanced at Hua Xiaoheng with a smile and looked at his flawless profile. She only hoped that they would continue like this and never see an end. Unfortunately, this was just a thought. Not long after, they walked out of the embassy district and arrived at the Barbados government office. It was indeed a very small country. Even if all the government departments were gathered together, it wouldn't be as big as a government in a first-tier city in the Huaxia Empire. Hua Xiaoheng led her to stand in front of a white building and said quietly, "This is the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Barbados. We need their help to restore your identity." Gu Nianji looked at the ordinary building curiously. "It's that small?" "Yeah, it's very small. There are only about 600 people in the Barbados National Defense Force, so a few gunmen can really start a coup here." Hua Xiaoheng smiled. "We still don't have any leads on those gunmen. If you restore your identity, you'll probably become their target too. Are you afraid?" "Of course not." Gu Nianji shook her head. "What do I have to be afraid of when I'm with you?" Hua Xiaoheng held her hand with a smile on his lips and looked up at the building with her. "I brought you here tonight because I wanted to keep your identity a secret for a while. I wanted to wait and see how things would develop, and then strike later to gain the upper hand. Also, when we go in later, don't say you lost your memory, okay?" Gu Nianji nodded. "I understand. Do you want to go in?" Hua Xiaoheng took out his phone and called the person he contacted in the Barbados government. Hua Xiaoheng said a string of standard British English, and Gu Nianji was intoxicated. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng with a smile and gently snuggled up to him. Hua Xiaoheng put an arm around her waist and said a few more words on the phone before saying to Gu Nianji, "Okay, let's go in." Soon after, the door to the Ministry of Internal Affairs opened from the inside, and a middle-aged black man received them. They sat down inside and Hua Xiaoheng handed over Gu Nianji's identification documents. The middle-aged black man hurriedly looked through the documents and kept exclaiming, "My God," as he read. When he was done, he looked at Gu Nianji with surprise and asked very patiently, "Dear Sirius, do you still remember me? I even carried you when you were young." He then said to Hua Xiaoheng, "Mr. Gu is a great man. He helped me and my family. If he hadn't sponsored me to go to university in the United States, I wouldn't be here as a high-ranking government official. He changed my life, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to repay his kindness." Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. Was Sirius her English name? Literally, Sirius was the epithet, Queen of the Night, Queen of the Night. It wasn't a common name. Gu Yanran's English name was Jasmine, a very common female name. It meant Jasmine. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and looked at Gu Nianji as he said to the middle-aged black man, "Mr. Mike, do you still remember her?" "I remember what Sirius looked like when she was young." The middle-aged black man studied Gu Nianji carefully. "I have to say she's completely different from now. If it wasn't for your investigation documents, I wouldn't have believed it." He couldn't believe she was Mr. Gu's youngest daughter. Yes, that's understandable. If I hadn't watched her grow up, I wouldn't have believed it either. Hua Xiaoheng nodded politely. "May I ask if you need any more proof?" Nianji was a missing person in Barbados back then, right? Yes. Mike had already found all the documents on Gu Nianji. She disappeared 7 years ago. To be precise, in 2 weeks she'll have been missing for 7 years. You know, after 7 years, a lot of things won't be easy to do. Yes, so it's Mr. Gu's good fortune to have Nianji return to the Gu family before the 7 years are up. Hua Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji's hand. "Take a look and see what other proof you need to restore her identity and close the case. I need time to verify these documents." Mike still spoke in a businesslike tone. "But don't worry, I'll keep it a secret. I swear in the name of Christ, Jasmine won't find out." "I believe you." Hua Xiaoheng shook Mr. Mike's hand. "The reason I asked you is because you are Christ's most loyal servant. Mr. Gu will thank you when he wakes up." Mike carefully placed his right hand on his chest and saluted Hua Xiaoheng. "Don't worry, Mr. Hua. I'll take care of it." Gu Nianji didn't speak for a long time after walking out of the small building of the Ministry of Internal Affairs in Barbados. "What is it?" Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her. "You don't believe Mike can keep it a secret?" "That's not it." Gu Nianji stopped in her tracks and looked up at Hua Xiaoheng. "I was thinking if Hua Xiao could give such an important thing to him and trust him, then his identity can't be that simple, right?" Hua Xiaoheng froze. His sharp gaze was like an X-ray that could see through a person's heart. It swept over Gu Nianji's face. "Why do you say that?" "It's just intuition." Gu Nianji smiled shyly. "Maybe I'm wrong." "No, you're right." Hua Xiaoheng smiled slightly. He took Gu Nianji's hand and kissed the back of it. My Nianji is the smartest. Gu Nianji's cheeks flushed. Under the moonlight, her smile was even more beautiful than the epiphyllum flower. It was also more alluring. Wu Xiaoheng seemed to be tempted. He couldn't help lowering his head and kissing her bright cheek. Then the kiss automatically moved to her lips. He kissed her once, then again. Reason told him to stop, but his feelings took over. He cupped Gu Nianji's face and tasted her lips again. Gu Nianji tiptoed and was dizzy from Wu Xiaoheng's kiss. She seemed to hear the nightingale's cry in her mind, and large epiphyllum flowers bloomed under the moonlight. The moonlight penetrated the darkness in her mind, and some sporadic images appeared in her memory. Someone held her in his arms like a child. He pointed at the epiphyllum flower in front of her and taught her to pronounce it word by word. Sirius, Sirius, that's your English name? She couldn't see the person's face, but the voice was familiar. Who was it? Gu Nianji closed her eyes. A spasmodic pain in her mind made her stop searching for this memory. She hugged Wu Xiaoheng tightly and rubbed his neck like a kitten. Sleepy? Wu Xiaoheng patted her head and finally stopped the long kiss. Gu Nianji's plump lips were already bright red and even a little swollen. Looking at Gu Nianji like this, Wu Xiaoheng seemed to hear Qinlai's teasing tone. Go to your job. Do it well. He took a deep breath and suppressed the restlessness in his body. He moved himself away slightly. Go back to sleep. Stay at the consulate for the next few days and don't go anywhere. Okay. Gu Nianji leaned her head against Wu Xiaoheng and began to act shamelessly. Wu Xiao, I'm tired. I can't walk anymore. Wu Xiaoheng, I really can't walk anymore. Look. Gu Nianji tried to lift her legs. I can't even lift my legs. Wu Xiaoheng couldn't help but laugh. He turned around and bowed. Come on, I'll carry you. A tall figure bent down in front of her. Gu Nianji was excited and touched. There was also a slight sourness in her chest. Finally, it intertwined and turned into sweetness. She lay on Wu Xiaoheng's back and was carried forward by him. The streetlights stretched their shadows so long that she couldn't see the end. It was already 11 o'clock at night when they returned to the consulate. Qinlai walked out of the room and saw Wu Xiaoheng carrying the sleeping Gu Nianji. He chuckled and clicked his tongue. Wu Xiao, you should take it easy. You made our Nianji faint on the first day of work. What are you going to do in the future? This is the first update, 3,300 words. It's a big chapter. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be an additional update at 7 o'clock. Chapter 493. Wu Xiaoheng glanced at Qinlai and suddenly said to someone behind him, Dr. Yi, come help me take Nianji to her room. Qinlai trembled in fear. His face was pale as he stood there helplessly, not daring to turn around. He was as stiff as a marionette as he stood in front of his door, watching Wu Xiaoheng slowly walk past him with a smile on his lips. Qinlai only realized what was going on when Wu Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji to her room. He whipped his head around, but Yi Zitan was nowhere to be seen. Wu Xiaoheng was just messing with him. Qinlai burped in anger and rushed to Gu Nianji's room. He raised his fist to slam the door, but remembered that Yi Zitan's room was right next to Gu Nianji's. He immediately stopped. Unwilling to give up, he crossed his arms and angrily leaned against the wall in front of Gu Nianji's room, waiting for Wu Xiaoheng to come out. Wu Xiaoheng gently placed the sleeping Gu Nianji on the large, spacious bed. The weather in Barbados was hot, and most rooms were air-conditioned, so it was cool at night. Wu Xiaoheng wiped the sweat from Gu Nianji's forehead and pulled a thin silk blanket over her before leaving the room. He didn't need to turn around to know that Qinlai was leaning against the wall with a gloomy expression. Wu Xiaoheng put his hands in his trouser pockets and said calmly, Are you saying that only the governor can set things on fire, but not the common people? How would I dare? Qinlai felt wronged. I'm a common person and you're the governor. You can set things on fire but I can't, okay? Fine, then let's call it even for today. Wu Xiaoheng turned around, his expression serious. Qinlai, this is really important. Don't take it lightly. Anything can happen and a gunman could come after you at any time. It's that serious? Who is that person? Qinlai's interest was piqued. Why so cautious? Aren't you sleepy? Wu Xiaoheng looked at his watch. It's already very late. Let's talk tomorrow? Come on. You got me interested and didn't finish the conversation. Do you think I can fall asleep? Qinlai grumbled unhappily, but he remembered that Gu Nianji and Yi Zitan were sleeping in the next room, so he didn't yell too loudly. Wu Xiaoheng nodded. Okay, since you don't want to sleep, come with me. I'll show you something. Wu Xiaoheng brought Qinlai back to his room and showed him the documents as he said, This is your mission this time. You're to bring Gu Xiangwen back to the country as a healthcare doctor. It took Qinlai a moment to react. Gu Xiangwen? Was it that Gu Xiangwen? You finally found him? But didn't you say he was in a vegetative state? How did he become a vegetable? Apparently he was on MH210 7 years ago, Wu Xiaoheng said in a low voice. He crossed his arms and paced around the room, combing through all the clues. At the time, I heard that everyone else had died except for him. He was saved by his daughter, Gu Yanran, but he never woke up. Wait. Qinlai was confused. How could his daughter be Gu Yanran? Wasn't it Nianji? Didn't you always say that Nianji's father's name was Gu Xiangwen? Yes, Nianji's father is indeed Gu Xiangwen. He's also Gu Yanran's father. Wu Xiaoheng stopped walking and looked at Qinlai's flushed face. He couldn't help laughing. You're surprised too? Gu Yanran isn't related to Gu Nianji by blood, but she's Gu Xiangwen's daughter? Then Nianji? Qinlai frowned, his round eyes squinting into a line. You don't understand? Wu Xiaoheng shook his head in amusement. Forget it, I won't make things difficult for you. There are also sisters who aren't related by blood. You'll understand once you think about it. Qinlai had a sudden realization. One of them isn't their biological daughter. So that's how it is. As expected, the person involved can't see clearly. Actually, it wasn't that the person involved couldn't see clearly, because Gu Nianji's situation was rather special. She had lost her memories before she was 12 years old, so the only way to prove her identity was to verify her DNA. If the DNA didn't match, who could prove that two unrelated people had a sister relationship out of thin air? Now that He Zhichu had stepped up to help them, they had more clues about Gu Nianji's background. Wu Xiaoheng walked to the sofa opposite Qinlai and sat down. With one hand on his knee, he continued to tell Qinlai about Gu Xiangwen's situation. The day I arrived in Barbados, the Gu residence was robbed by gunmen. The goal was to force Gu Yanran to reveal Gu Xiangwen's whereabouts. But Gu Yanran would rather die than say anything. Later, I chased after her and rescued her. She then decided to send her father to the United States. To the United States? Not to our country? Qinlai sat up straight. Why are you beating around the bush? I'm not beating around the bush. It's a bit complicated. Anyway, the military agreed to help her, but the condition was to send Gu Xiangwen to the Wuxia Empire, not the United States. Wu Xiaoheng sighed. In the end, although Gu Yanran agreed to the military's condition, she wasn't very willing. She's been slacking. I had no choice but to ask Nianji to come over. I also asked you to come, just in case. Qinlai finally understood the ins and outs of the matter. He propped his head on his hand and thought about it quietly for a while. He extended a finger and shook it. Then it looks like we need to prepare a few more sets of equipment and bring more people to be safe. Yeah, I'll entrust this to you. I'll be responsible for finding the person and bringing him here. I'll also be on guard along the way. You'll be responsible for making sure the patient's condition doesn't worsen on the way. It's best if you can think of a way to wake him up. Wu Xiaoheng had high hopes for Qinlai and looked at him steadily. Qinlai nodded quickly. Of course I'll think of a way. Don't worry, but the most important thing right now is to find the person, right? Yeah. Wu Xiaoheng crossed his arms and leaned back on the sofa. Barbados is such a small place. Where could Gu Yanran hide people? He asked in confusion. Even the local gunmen can't find him. You're not familiar with the place, so it'll be even more difficult. Qinlai spread his hands. Why don't we just wait here? I'll push Gu Yanran again tomorrow. If she still refuses, then I won't hold back. Wu Xiaoheng was a very mobile person. He had 2 or even 3 backup plans. He just had to see what Gu Yanran wanted to do. Gu Yanran was driving from the city to her villa in the suburbs. Her phone suddenly rang. She put on her Bluetooth headset and answered softly. It's you? What's wrong? You haven't left yet? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Yanran, I'm afraid I've really dragged you down this time. What's wrong? Gu Yanran's hand paused. She was going to step on the brake, but she stepped on the accelerator instead. Thankfully, there weren't many people on the road. Otherwise, she would have rear-ended the car in front of her. Wu Xiaoheng and the others are still investigating my whereabouts. I just received news that they've been investigating Yamaguchi-gumi in Japan. The voice sounded gloomy and unhappy. No way? Gu Yanran was shocked. What does Yamaguchi-gumi have to do with you? Don't scare yourself. The person on the other end didn't speak for a long time. He couldn't explain in detail to Gu Yanran. In the end he only said, we have to cut off each other. We can't let anyone find evidence of our relationship. Otherwise you're dead and I'm dead too. Is that serious? Gu Yinran wasn't worried at all. She giggled. This isn't like you, it's really serious. The person on the other end was very cautious. I've escaped twice but I can't do it thrice. I don't know if I can escape a third time. If I can't. The person paused. Just pretend that you don't have me as a friend, that you've never seen me, and that I don't exist in this world. Oh. Gu Yinran finally slammed on the brakes and stopped the car on the shoulder of the road. Tell me clearly. What's going on? What did you do? The more you know, the worse it will be for you. Are you sure you want to know? The person on the other end snickered. Let's not get to the bottom of this. Yinran, you're my friend. I won't let anything happen to you. Be careful for the next few days. The person muttered a few more words on the phone before hanging up. Gu Yinran frowned and stared blankly at the road ahead. Had going to the Wuxia Empire become her only way out? But she wanted to go to America even more. It was easy for her to go alone, but she couldn't leave Barbados quietly with a vegetable. She sighed and leaned against the steering wheel as if she'd fallen asleep. After a while, a black Mercedes SUV stopped behind her car. A tall and handsome man got out of the car and knocked on Gu Yinran's window. Miss Gu? What's wrong? It's you? Gu Yinran turned to see the familiar face and opened the door. The man got in. Miss Gu, what's troubling you? I can help you. The man's eyes were black and white, and the whites were so pure they were blue. He was like a child with a pure heart. Gu Yinran touched his face, then moved her hand down his arm to hold his palm. She looked down at his hands, the hands that had helped her countless times. They were not clean and they smelled of blood, but they had once been the only thing she could rely on. Now those hands couldn't help her anymore. Gu Yinran shook her head. You don't have to stay by our side. Yishan, you're free now. This is the second update. A reminder for monthly votes and recommendation votes. They've been modified. Chapter 494. Freedom? The man named Yishan seemed to scoff at the term. Miss, you forgot again. Uncle Gu didn't sponsor the orphans in the orphanage to restrict our personal freedom. We were never not free. Really? Gu Yinran smiled tiredly. She didn't have the energy to argue with him anymore. Turning her head to look out the window, she said dryly, I was wrong, okay? I'm very tired. I don't want to argue today. No one wants to argue with you. Yishan leaned over to look at Gu Yinran's face. She was indeed a bit tired. He nudged her. Sit there. I'll drive. Gu Yinran looked back and saw Yishan's SUV behind the car. She pouted. What about your car? Leave it there. I'll get someone to tow it when I get back. Gu Yinran really didn't have the energy to drive anymore. She moved to the passenger seat and curled up in the soft seat. Biting her nails, she spaced out. Yishan started the car and asked her, Where are we going? Back to the manor, Gu Yinran murmured. She seemed to have a lot on her mind that she couldn't say. Yishan was quiet for a while before driving onto the highway. He opened the window again, and the cool night breeze blew in with the humidity from the sea. It was refreshing. Gu Yinran closed her eyes and said, I'm going to sleep for a while. Remember to wake me up when we arrive. Okay. Yishan agreed sullenly and drove all the way back to the Gus Manor in the suburbs. The road was very smooth. There was almost no traffic, so it took less than 15 minutes to reach the entrance of the manor. Yishan got out first and opened the door. Standing to the side, he said like a doorman, Miss, we're here. Gu Yinran's eyes fluttered. Her long eyelashes fluttered as she slowly opened her eyes. She was confused for a moment until she saw the towering iron gate, the bright streetlight in front of the gate, and the tall figure under the streetlight. She was dazed for a moment and murmured, Why aren't you him? Missy? Yishan frowned and bent over to hold her arm in the car. Wake up. We're here. Gu Yinran woke up and followed Yishan's grip out of the car. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, she said, Thank you. I'm going back now. What about you? Do you want to stay here for the night? Yishan's car was abandoned on the shoulder of the highway. It was the middle of the night and they couldn't find anyone to tow it. Do you want me to stay here for the night? Yishan placed one hand on the metal door and blocked Gu Yinran's way in. Gu Yinran looked up at Yishan in surprise. He had thick brows, large eyes, a high-nose bridge and deep-set eyes. He had the appearance of a typical mixed-race person, and he was a particularly handsome one. Yishan, do you miss me? Yishan stubbornly refused to let go. He took a step forward and lowered his head his question almost touching Gu Yanran's lips. Gu Yanran wanted to say no, but before she could refuse, Yi Xian had already bitten her. He sucked on her lips and blocked her mouth, not allowing her to refuse. Gu Yanran moaned a few times before Yi Xian lifted her up and walked through the metal door. The two of them were entangled the entire way and their clothes were all over the place. By the time they reached the living room of the large house, they couldn't wait to get into it. Gu Yanran was in a very bad mood, and Yi Xian's arrival was like an antidote. It allowed her to temporarily forget all the recent troubles and just enjoy the sex between a man and a woman with him. After they were done, she only wrapped a towel around herself and went to the bathroom to take a shower. Looking at her messy appearance in the bathroom mirror, she shook her head and went straight to the shower to wash up. After showering, she came out of the bathroom to see that Yi Xian had also finished showering. He had changed into his pajamas and was leaning against her bed reading a magazine. It was a fashion magazine that Gu Yanran had casually tossed on the bedside table to kill time before going to bed. Yi Xian wasn't at all interested in what these women were reading, but it seemed rather awkward not to have something in his hands at a time like this. Gu Yanran sat in front of the vanity and took the hairdryer to dry her hair. Yi Xian put down the magazine and hugged his head with both hands as he watched her dress up. After applying night cream, Gu Yanran walked to the bed in her pajamas and said to Yi Xian, "Xian, tonight is the last night. Let's break up." Break up? Yi Xian couldn't help but snicker again. Were we ever together before? Gu Yanran didn't speak and looked down at him, the corners of her lips gradually pursed. "There's no point in you looking at me like this." Yi Xian sat up on the bed. "I won't leave you. From the day you saved me, I swore that my life was yours and that I would only recognize you in this lifetime." "Xian, we were still young at that time," Gu Yanran said in a daze. Sitting on the bed, she pulled Yi Xian's hand to her cheek. "You and I also had a good time, so let's part on good terms. I will get married in the future and have my own family and husband. He won't be happy that I have a male confidant, like you. I don't care if he's happy or not." Yi Xian looked at Gu Yanran in a daze. "When I was in boarding school in the United States, my happiest time every week for 10 years was reading the emails you wrote to me. For so many years, it was one every week without stopping until Uncle Gu's accident. I had already set my heart on you. Although you were still young at that time, you didn't know." Gu Yanran covered his mouth with her hand. "Don't say any more. It's all in the past. We've already grown up. You were still young at that time. You saved me and got seriously ill because of it. Uncle Gu sent me to boarding school in the United States for 10 years. I didn't expect that when I came back, Uncle Gu would already be in a vegetative state." Yi Xian thumped the bed with his other hand. "I saw the news about you being held hostage by the gunman that day. Yanran, you see, you can't live without me. You just asked me to leave and then something like this happened. Tell me, how can I not worry?" Gu Yanran looked at Yi Xian. She was touched. Ever since Gu Xiangwen's accident, she had been supporting the entire Gu family on her own. There were very few people in the Gu family to begin with. With such a large fortune in her hands, she felt like a naughty child parading around the downtown area with a huge fortune. No wonder so many people coveted her. She almost couldn't take it anymore. Yi Xian had interrupted his studies to rush back to Barbados after Gu Xiangwen's accident to help her and be loyal to her. However, although Yi Xian was very good to her and she had feelings for him, Yi Xian was alone and didn't have the ability to protect her and the Gu family. She needed someone else to rely on. Yi Xian were really not compatible. Gu Yanran sighed and propped her head up with her hand. Her long, curly hair hung down and covered half her face. "I don't want my future husband to be unhappy. You should leave." Yi Xian's hands began to tremble. He half knelt in front of Gu Yanran and held her hand. "Yanran, you really won't give me a chance? I can help you. I can definitely help you." "You can't help me." Gu Yanran's voice was very calm. "I don't want to ruin your entire life. Yi Xian, you should have your own life. Find a girl, fall in love, get married, have your own family and have a few children of your own. You'll quickly forget everything now. Perhaps you'll even wish that none of this had happened." Yanran. Yi Xian were really not compatible. Gu Yanran had already completely calmed down. There was no emotion in her voice. "Don't ever come back. If you come back, don't blame me for being angry. You really want to kick me out." Yi Xian had a very hurt expression on his face. He slowly stood up and looked down at Gu Yanran, who hadn't said a word, anticipating her reaction. Gu Yanran's expression didn't change. She only nodded. "I'm not kicking you out. I'm letting you live your own life." Since Gu Yanran had already said it so decisively, Yi Xian had no reason to stay. He changed his clothes with a dark expression and quickly rushed out of the room. Before he left, he didn't forget to slam the door for her. Gu Yanran looked in the direction of the door and smiled bitterly. She took out her phone and dialed Hua Xiaoheng's number. Mr. Hua? Seeing that Gu Yanran had finally called, Hua Xiaoheng calmly put on his Bluetooth headset. He waited for the phone to ring a few times before saying, Miss Gu, what's up? Gu Yanran choked. She secretly thought that Hua Xiaoheng was really good at pretending. He clearly wanted to see her father, Gu Xiangwen, but he was so calm. Forget it. She definitely couldn't compete with Hua Xiaoheng in terms of patience. Gu Yanran smiled. Yes, Mr. Hua, did you forget? Didn't you promise to send my father to your country to recuperate? Oh, I remember that. But Miss Gu doesn't seem to be in a hurry, so we're even less in a hurry. The scenery in Barbados is pretty good. We'll treat it as a public holiday. Hua Xiaoheng put one hand in his trouser pocket and held a cigar in the other. He stood in the hotel smoking room and stared at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window. Mr. Mike had just given him confirmation that Gu Nianji's identity was completely legal and would soon be restored as a Barbados citizen. Barbados was a British Commonwealth country, so Gu Nianji automatically had British Commonwealth citizen status. But this way her Huaxia Empire citizenship would be invalid. But Hua Xiaoheng wasn't worried. After returning to the empire, he would help Gu Nianji apply for Huaxia Empire citizenship, which meant she would become a Huaxia Empire citizen. Before all the citizenship procedures were completed, Hua Xiaoheng still had to hide this from Gu Yanran. He wanted to see what she had up her sleeve. As expected, Gu Yanran became uncertain from Hua Xiaoheng's words. She finally said, Mr. Hua, don't be angry. I didn't mean to delay it. You also know that there are still gunmen on the run. I don't dare to reveal my father's location too quickly. Hua Xiaoheng snorted in his heart. His voice was extremely low. Let's not talk about the past. Let us see your father as soon as possible, then we can discuss how to bring him on the plane. Gu Yanran nodded. It's already very late. If Mr. Hua is free, come to the Mandala Manor in the suburbs at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is also our Gu family's property. You can find it on the map. This is the first update of 3,000 words. A reminder for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be an additional update at 7 o'clock. Chapter 495. After ending the call with Gu Yanran, Hua Xiaoheng looked up Mandala Manor. According to the map, it was a large manor of about 10 acres. There weren't many houses in the garden, only one main building and 3 or 4 other smaller buildings. Other than that, there were trees everywhere and it was near the mountains and the sea. It was a good location. Big Xiong, prepare the car. We'll leave at 8 tomorrow morning for Mandala Manor in the suburbs. Hua Xiaoheng sent the address to Yin Shixiang. Little Zay, prepare backup data and be on standby. Roger, Chief. Because he wanted to bring Gu Xiangwen back to the Huaxia Empire, after consulting with General Ji, the higher-ups in the military gave him the green light to mobilize more people from the Special Operations Forces to Barbados to help. These people were now under Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liang's management. Gu Nianji, Yi Zitan, and Chen Lai were under Hua Xiaoheng's management. The 3 of them stayed at the consulate while Hua Xiaoheng and the others stayed at the hotel. In order to prepare for tomorrow's mission, Hua Xiaoheng, Yin Shixiang, and Zhao Liangza didn't sleep the entire night to prepare the first step of the plan. Tomorrow is the last time we urge her to hand over Gu Xiangwen. If she still refuses, we'll execute Plan B. Hua Xiaoheng passed the 2 plans to Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangza. If she thinks it through, we can discuss the specifics of returning to Barbados tomorrow. Then we'll execute Plan A. Roger, Chief. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangza took the 2 plans from Hua Xiaoheng and started preparing. At 7 the next morning, Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang had already packed up and went to the hotel lobby for breakfast. Yin Shixiang left early and drove the car over. It was a bulletproof car from Cuba. To prevent any ambushes near the Gu Manor, Hua Xiaoheng had specifically contacted the Huaxia Imperial Embassy in Cuba to ask for the car. Hua Xiaoheng strode out of the hotel, and Yin Shixiang quickly got out to open the door. A few staff members followed him into the car. They were actually Hua Xiaoheng's bodyguards, which meant they were his personal bodyguards. Traffic in Barbados was very smooth in the morning, especially from the city to the outside. It was a bit crowded from the outside to the city. Many people lived in the suburbs but worked in the city. 15 minutes later, Hua Xiaoheng's car arrived at the entrance of the Gu's Mandala Manor. Yi Xian did not leave. He had been hiding in the forest outside the Gu Manor. He wanted to see why Gu Yanran wanted him to leave. When Huo Xiaoheng's car drove over, Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. He quickly climbed up the tree and hid himself in the foliage. He drove the low-key but luxurious car and stopped in front of the iron gate of the Gu Manor. First, a capable young man got out of the car. He wore sunglasses and looked around before bending down to open the car door. Then, an even taller and more handsome mature man slowly walked out of the car. He was diagonally facing Yi Xian, so Yi Xian could only see the side of his face. However, it was only the side of his face, but the handsomeness of his face was enough to make Yi Xian's breathing almost stop. It must be because of this man, Yi Xian silently concluded in his heart. Not to mention this man's ridiculously handsome face, Yi Xian could tell from the way he stood there that this was a man who had been in a high position for a long time. He had the aura of a person of high status and power. This kind of aura set them apart from normal people. When people saw them, they couldn't help but submit and listen to them. Yi Xian's eyes revealed a trace of animalistic ferocity. Was it because of this man that Miss Gu didn't want him anymore? He might never be able to compare to this man in this lifetime, but did he have his heart? As his emotions surged, Yi Xian's body swayed slightly. It was only a very slight sway, almost comparable to the feeling of the wind rustling the leaves of the trees. However, Huo Xiaoheng keenly sensed that someone was secretly spying on them. He raised his hand to cover his mouth and coughed softly. He had already whispered into the receiver on his hand, "There's something strange on the right side at 3 o'clock. Zhao Liangzi, who was in the middle of dispatching, received the news and immediately contacted their people to mobilize satellites to conduct a blanket search of the area. Not long after, Yi Xian's blurry silhouette and face were transmitted to the receiver on Huo Xiaoheng's hand. The receiver looked similar to an Apple Watch, but in reality, its functions were worlds apart. When Huo Xiaoheng looked down at his watch, he could already see Yi Xian's face on the screen. Find out who this person is. Huo Xiaoheng saw that the person's fierce expression carried an inexplicable sorrow and sadness. He didn't think this was the gunman from last time. Every single one of the gunmen from last time looked like outlaws who only cared about money. There was no other way. Zhao Liangzi began to search the database. The first thing he searched was, of course, the Barbados government's population database. There were all the detailed information of Barbados citizens and all tourists who entered the country legally, including photos, passports, and fingerprints. Of course, if this person wasn't a Barbados citizen or a tourist who entered the country legally, but an illegal immigrant, then he wouldn't be able to find them. However, Zhao Liangzi was very lucky. He found this person in the first round of searching the Barbados government database. Overjoyed, he sent all the information to Huo Xiaoheng. By the time Huo Xiaoheng walked from the iron gate to the entrance of the Mandala Manor House, he had already gotten most of Yi Xian's information. So this person was an orphan that Gu Xiangwen had sponsored back then. He was originally studying in the United States, but after Gu Xiangwen's accident, he returned from the United States and followed Gu Yanran to manage the Gu family's business. He didn't know why he was hiding in the forest to spy. Huo Xiaoheng felt that with this person's relationship with the Gu family and Gu Yanran, he could openly stand by Gu Yanran's side and receive Huo Xiaoheng's group with her. Was there a problem? Huo Xiaoheng's occupational disease was acting up again, and he ordered Zhao Liangzi to continue looking into Yi Xian's information to see if he could find the boarding school he attended in the United States for 10 years. That way he could learn more information. As soon as he sent the order, the door in front of Huo Xiaoheng opened from the inside. Gu Yanran wore a very close-fitting light gray professional suit and raised her hand at Huo Xiaoheng. Mr. Huo is so punctual. Punctuality is the virtue of an emperor. It's only right. Huo Xiaoheng bowed slightly and led Yin Shixiang inside. Gu Yanran looked curiously at the 4 or 5 smart and capable young people standing outside the door and asked Huo Xiaoheng, "They are? They are my subordinates. You don't have to pay attention to them." Huo Xiaoheng glanced at them. "Stand guard at the door." "Yes, sir." Although there were only 4 or 5 people, the chorus of responses was still very impressive. Gu Yanran was shocked, but she quickly recovered and smiled. "Mr. Huo is too cautious. It's actually very safe here. Just in case." Huo Xiaoheng sat down, and a young black girl from Barbados in a white maid dress walked over with a cup of coffee. She placed it in front of Huo Xiaoheng and said in very broken Chinese, "Huo Xiansen, please?" Huo Xiaoheng nodded and said thank you. Gu Yanran watched the black maid turn and leave. She couldn't help but sigh. "These are the servants I just recruited. They haven't trained much. We are going to leave anyway, so what's the point of training? That's it. What happened to your previous servants? They're all dead." They were all killed by the gunman that day. They were all old servants who had been with the Gu family for more than 20 years. Some of them had been serving the Gu family for more than 20 years, and they're gone just like that. I'm very sorry to their families. I just prepared a large sum of compensation money yesterday and sent it to the servants' families. Gu Yanran took a sip of coffee and looked distressed. We don't know what happened either. Everyone in the family is gone. I'm the only one left now. Huo Xiaoheng listened quietly. He turned his coffee cup and put it back on the coffee table. He waited for Gu Yanran to finish before asking, "Isn't there still your father? Although he's in a vegetative state, he's still alive." "Oh yes, there's still my father." Gu Yanran wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. "But his condition isn't very good. Recently, his condition has worsened and he's been hospitalized several times." She finally got to the point. Huo Xiaoheng sat up straight and looked at her with concern. He asked in a low voice, "Is he still in the hospital?" Actually, he had already done his research. Before Gu Yanran suddenly returned to Barbados, the He family had stepped in and taken Gu Xiangwen out of the hospital. But no one knew where he went after he was taken out. At least the gunman didn't know, so they used the lives of all the servants in the Gu family to force her and almost killed her in the end. Gu Yanran tilted her head and thought about it. As expected of Mr. Hua. You got to the point right away. Okay, go ahead. Actually, my father is still in the hospital. But he's being heavily protected by the He family. Gu Yanran said word by word, "A few days ago my father's condition worsened and he was admitted to the hospital. At that time, the He family said they received news that someone wanted to harm my father, so they came up with a plan. They pretended to take him out of the hospital and made it look like my father had already been discharged to divert their attention. Therefore, the gunman didn't know my father was still in the hospital. They only changed the ward and all the caregivers. There are many people in the hospital. You're saying no one knows?" Huo Xiaoheng was in disbelief. "Now, even my father's doctor and caregivers don't know who they're seeing. Also, I haven't been to the hospital even once since I came back, so they won't suspect anything." Gu Yanran was very confident. "But Mr. Hua, if we want to take my father out, I will have to personally handle all the procedures at the hospital. But the moment I go, the people behind the gunman will know where my father is. When that happens, I don't even dare to think about what kind of fate that will befall the hospital. Tell me, what should I do to get my father out in one piece without alerting the gunman?" This was a dilemma. If Gu Yanran didn't go, they wouldn't be able to take Gu Xiangwen out of the hospital. But if Gu Yanran went, the mastermind who was after Gu Xiangwen's life would immediately know where he was. By then, it was even possible that the hospital would be bathed in blood. Of course, Huo Xiaoheng didn't want to make a big deal out of it. What should he do? This was the second chapter, 3,200 words. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. There were some minor typos in yesterday's second chapter. Chapter 496. The hospital must see you in person before letting him go? Huo Xiaoheng was only troubled for a moment. He quickly composed himself and began to question Gu Yanran. Then wouldn't they know who the patient is? Didn't you just say that they don't know who their patient is? Gu Yanran frowned at Huo Xiaoheng. She seemed to take a while to understand what he was trying to say. It's like this. The doctors and nurses in the hospital really don't know who the patient is right now. But to discharge the patient, it requires a very complete procedure. When I sent my father to the hospital, I chose the highest level of discharge rules. Gu Yanran explained the hospital's rules and regulations to Huo Xiaoheng in detail. The highest level requires immediate family to be present in person to discharge the patient. Mr. Hua, you know who the immediate family members are, right? It has to be children, parents, or husband and wife. These three are the immediate family members. So that's how it is. Huo Xiaoheng's heart instantly relaxed, but he still asked calmly, must immediate family members be present in person? Not even a power of attorney with a lawyer's guarantee? If the power of attorney worked, Gu Yanran wouldn't have to go to the hospital herself. That way she wouldn't attract the attention of the gunman. Of course not. Gu Yanran wagged her finger proudly. If the power of attorney worked, then it wouldn't be called the highest level of discharge rules. That's one level lower. In other words, other than immediate family members being present in person, there's no other way to discharge your father? Huo Xiaoheng repeated what Gu Yanran said. Yes, Mr. Hua is right. Right now, my father and I are the only immediate family members in the Gu family. So, this is really difficult to do. Gu Yanran spread her hands, her expression extremely helpless. How about this? If Mr. Hua can help us catch the person behind the gunman, I'll immediately discharge my father from the hospital and settle down in your country with him. What do you think? So in the end, Hua Xiaoheng still needed to help her catch the person first before he could enjoy the benefits that Gu Xiangwen could bring. However, Hua Xiaoheng's desire to find Gu Xiangwen was completely different from the Huaxia military. He didn't care much about the benefits that Gu Xiangwen could bring after waking up, because he knew that it couldn't be forced. No one knew if Gu Xiangwen would be willing to cooperate with them after he woke up, and they would not force him to do anything for them. Therefore this attraction was not enough for him. A large part of the reason he was trying so hard to find Gu Xiangwen was because of Gu Nianji. He wanted her to have a clear identity. However, Hua Xiaoheng didn't want Gu Yanran to know about this. Therefore he pretended to be interested and thought about it. This is a very important matter. We don't have any leads on the shooters. It's not impossible to arrest them, but we don't know how long it'll take. May I ask if you won't go to the hospital to see your father even once during this time? In other words, it's fine if you don't want to pick up your father, but can you let us go take a look first? When buying things, one had to compare 3 different shops. Moreover, they had saved a living person. How could they not let others take a look? Gu Yanran understood what Hua Xiaoheng meant. She also knew that if she didn't give him some benefits, he wouldn't work for her properly. That's not a problem. I can arrange a time for Mr. Hua to personally go to the hospital to see my father at the time and place I specified. Gu Yanran agreed quickly and extended her hand to Hua Xiaoheng. Happy working with you. Her business-like expression was very generous and straightforward. There was no hesitation at all. It was as if the previous delay was just an illusion. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and stood up to shake Gu Yanran's hand. Happy working with you. Coming out of the Gu's mandala manor, Hua Xiaoheng quickly glanced at the direction where the person had been hiding. He realized that there was no longer any presence in that direction. That person had probably already left. Yin Shixiang walked over to open the car door for him. Hua Xiaoheng sat in the car silently. His private car quickly left the Gu's mandala manor and returned to the Huaxia Imperial Consulate in Barbados. When Hua Xiaoheng arrived at Gu Nianji's room, she was still sleeping. She was hugging the blanket and lying on the bed alone. She didn't sleep well, and one of her long legs was stretched out and curled up on top of the blanket. It was white like a tender lotus root. Hua Xiaoheng gulped and walked over to pull the blanket over Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji woke up alertly and half opened her eyes to see that it was Hua Xiaoheng. She immediately relaxed and hugged Hua Xiaoheng's waist. Snuggling against his side, she closed her eyes again. Hua Xiaoheng knew that she was already awake. However, she had a habit of lying in bed for a while after waking up. Hua Xiaoheng sat down by her bed and crossed his arms to think about the day's situation. On the way back, Gu Yanran had already sent him the time and location. It was set for 8 in the morning 3 days later. It wasn't too early or too late. He could use the special pass Gu Yanran had given him to visit Gu Xiangwen at the hospital. However, that was all he could do. The special pass wouldn't be able to take Gu Xiangwen out of the hospital. Hua Xiaoheng also wanted to take this opportunity to let Gu Nianji see Gu Xiangwen first. That was her father. She hadn't seen her father for 6 to 7 years. Hua Xiao, what are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? Gu Nianji hugged Hua Xiaoheng's waist and closed her eyes for a while. She mumbled sleepily, "He didn't even kiss me." This doesn't make sense. Hua Xiaoheng laughed and lowered his head to kiss her cheek. Since you're awake, get up. Don't laze in bed outside. Then he raised his hand and gently patted Gu Nianji's butt through the blanket. Domestic violence. Domestic violence. Gu Nianji whispered as she arched her body unwillingly. The thin silk fabric of the air conditioner rippled and made one's imagination run wild. She wanted nothing more than to remove the blankets and see the scenery inside. This is domestic violence? Hua Xiaoheng wrapped the blanket around Gu Nianji and scooped her up. He held her in his arms and pretended to throw her on the floor. Do you want to try real domestic violence? No, no. Hua Xiao, do me a favor and let me go. Gu Nianji giggled and finally opened her starry eyes. She gave Hua Xiaoheng a big smile, then hugged his neck and kissed both his cheeks. Okay, since it's your first offense, I'll let you go today. If you do it again in the future, you'll be punished for both offenses. Hua Xiaoheng whispered in Gu Nianji's ear. His hot breath ignited a ball of fire at her ear. The heat spread from her ear to her entire body in an instant. It was so stimulating that even the tips of her feet curled up. Gu Nianji made muffled sounds like a kitten's, but before she could argue, Hua Xiaoheng kissed her on the lips. It was a long morning kiss. Gu Nianji finally got out of bed with satisfaction. She hummed as she went to the bathroom to wash up. As soon as she walked in, she saw that the toiletries were all the brands she was used to. Even the towels were the same. She felt even more touched. Needless to say, Hua Xiaoheng must have asked someone to prepare these things for her. Because of this, she took a longer time in the bathroom to fully enjoy Hua Xiaoheng's thoughtful arrangements. If she didn't wash up properly, she would be letting down all the body wash, soap, and shampoo that came from overseas. Hua Xiaoheng looked at his watch. Gu Nianji had been in the bathroom for almost an hour. That long? Did she fall asleep in the bathtub? Hua Xiaoheng stood up and went to Gu Nianji's bathroom to knock on the door. Nianji? After a while, Gu Nianji finally turned off the tap and wiped her body with a towel. She changed into a bathrobe and wrapped a towel around her head before opening the bathroom door. Hua Xiaoheng stood at the door and looked her up and down with his arms crossed. You showered? What took you so long? I had to shower properly. I'm all smelly after taking such a long flight. Gu Nianji wrinkled her little nose. Luckily Hua Xiao arranged it well. It's all my usual toiletries. Otherwise I wouldn't be used to it. Yeah. Hua Xiaoheng waved his hand nonchalantly. Come out after you shower. I still have something to tell you. Because this matter required Gu Nianji's presence, Hua Xiaoheng included her in the work plan. This was also with the permission of the Huaxia Empire's Supreme Military Council. Otherwise he wouldn't have revealed the plan to Gu Nianji. Then Hua Xiao can go out first. I'll come out after I clean up. Gu Nianji quickly went to find clothes to change into. Hua Xiaoheng did have something to do, so he raised his hand to look at his watch again. Your clothes are in the suitcase by the bed. They were just delivered yesterday. Remember to pick a few more mature ones. Make sure your makeup is more mature too. Gu Nianji nodded. She had just found the suitcase when she heard the door open. She turned to see that Hua Xiaoheng had already left. She had indeed spent too much time in the bathroom just now. Gu Nianji shook her head with some regret, but when she saw the suitcase full of new clothes, she cheered up again. She opened the suitcase and poured the clothes onto the bed. She tried them on one by one and even broke her usual routine by mixing and matching. She tried them on for another half an hour. When she finished dressing and walked out of the room, she saw Yin Shixiang squatting in front of her door, planting mushrooms. Gu Nianji was speechless. Second Miss Gu, you're finally out. Yin Shixiang looked up at her and blinked. He had just gotten used to Gu Nianji's mature and beautiful makeup. He didn't get up. Your brother Xiong's arms and legs are old. I squatted on the floor planting mushrooms for half a day. I can't get up anymore. Gu Nianji smiled and extended her hand to Yin Shixiang. Brother Xiong, let me help you up. Yin Shixiang took her hand and stood up. He beamed. Nianji is the best. You know how to care for brother Xiong. Gu Nianji pushed him. Come on. Tell me, what are you doing at my door? Did Hua Xiao ask you to come? Yes. Yin Shixiang nodded. Hurry up and come down with me. We're going to discuss the specifics of the operation. We're waiting for you alone. Gu Nianji was a bit embarrassed as she tugged at her clothes. You were waiting for me alone? What do you think? Yin Shixiang led her into the small conference room and closed the door. Hua Xiao, Nianji is here. Hua Xiaoheng looked up to see a radiant young woman walk in. She raised her delicate neck slightly, and her coral-colored lips shone faintly. Her features were stunning, and who could compete with her in this world? This is the first update, 3,200 words. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be an additional update at 7 p.m. Chapter 497. So this was what Gu Nianji looked like when she dressed up maturely. Her smoky eyeshadow made her big eyes even more mysterious and alluring. Her snow-white skin was so tender that water could almost be squeezed out of it. Her delicate and straight nose looked as if it had been drawn with a ruler, and her curvy lips, which had been smeared with pearlescent coral lipstick, were even more of a fatal temptation. The outfit she had chosen was a tight blue satin dress suit. It accentuated her curves and was almost like a second layer of skin. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes darkened. He pointed at Gu Nianji and said, Go back and wash it off. Gu Nianji's lips opened and closed. She wanted to say, Didn't you tell me to dress more maturely? However, when she saw Hua Xiaoheng's dark, stormy eyes, as well as Chen Lai and Yin Shixiang watching from the sidelines, she pouted and swallowed her words. Glaring at Hua Xiaoheng, she turned around and ran back. Chen Lai was a little shocked, but when he saw Gu Nianji dare to glare at Hua Xiaoheng, he was even more shocked. He slapped the table and laughed. Oh my! Our Nianji isn't afraid of you anymore. Hua Xiao, you're in danger. There's actually someone who isn't afraid of you. Why should she be afraid of Huo? Yi Zitan looked at Huo Xiaoheng's gloomy expression curiously, then at the cheerful Chen Lai. She moved closer to him and whispered, I think Nianji's makeup is pretty good. Although it's quite mature, Nianji is still young. She's not even 20 yet. Chen Lai was even happier and couldn't stop smiling. He moved closer to Yi Zitan and whispered, I think so too, it's so pretty. It's like someone's eyes have problems. I think he needs to see an ophthalmologist. Huo Xiaoheng glared at Chen Lai and walked back to the chairman's seat at the long table in the conference room. He sat down and patted the documents on the table. There's not much time left. We didn't ask you to come to Barbados for sightseeing. The country and the military are providing the money and manpower. We have to do our job well. The corners of Chen Lai's mouth twitched and he stopped joking. He nudged Yi Zitan and sat down with her to the right of Huo Xiaoheng. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi sat across from Chen Lai and Yi Zitan. 3 days later, I'll take Nianji and Chen Lai to the hospital to visit Gu Xiangguan. Big Xiong, you'll come with us and be in charge of the local security. Little Zhe, you're still in charge of wireless communication. Dr. Yi, you'll be on standby at the consulate. The medical equipment that Chen Lai ordered will be delivered in a few days. You'll be in charge of receiving it, especially checking to see if there's anything wrong with it. Although they could return the goods if they didn't match, they were in urgent need of it now. They couldn't wait to return the goods, so they had to solve it as soon as possible. Yes, Chief. Everyone nodded and accepted their mission. Huo Xiaoheng pushed a set of documents to Chen Lai and Yi Zitan. Take a look. I still have something to tell Little Zhe and Big Xiong. What he was going to talk about next was probably related to the Special Operations Forces. Chen Lai and Yi Zitan didn't want to know too much, so they stood up together. Then we'll go back first. After Chen Lai and Yi Zitan left, Huo Xiaoheng told Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi about Gu Yanran's request. Her main goal is still to capture the person behind the gunman. But we know nothing about the gunman. How are we going to catch them? What do you think? Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi looked at each other. After a while, Yin Shixiang pulled up the computer data on the gunman incident at the airport and said to Huo Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi, Huo Xiao, Little Zhe, look at the gunmen. How many were there? How many died in the end? Zhao Liangzi stared at Yin Shixiang's computer data for a minute and said, Should be 8? We killed 7 on the spot, and the last one escaped with Gu Yanran and was later killed by Huo Xiao in the sea? Huo Xiaoheng shook his head and gently tapped a pen on the conference table. I didn't kill him. Gu Yanran killed him herself. That powerful. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang exclaimed at the same time. They hadn't heard Huo Xiaoheng talk about the situation that day in detail. Now that he was taking the initiative to talk about it, they became interested and pestered him to elaborate on the details. Their reason for doing so was that they could carefully find evidence of the mastermind. Huo Xiaoheng was silent for a while and was about to speak when he heard the door open again. Gu Nianji walked in with a plain face. She had washed off the mature makeup on her face. Other than skincare products, she didn't use any other makeup. Her close-fitting dress had been changed into elegant trousers. Her top was a rain blue heavy silk lace-up shirt with drooping sleeves, and the ribbon in front of her chest was tied with a graceful bow. Her slim trousers were a mix of white linen and silk, and she wore a pair of white mid-heeled leather shoes. Her long hair was tied into a ponytail and hung behind her head. She looked refreshing, without the seductive charm from before, only pure and beautiful feelings that could purify people's hearts. Huo Xiaoheng breathed a sigh of relief and waved for her to come over. Nianji, sit here. He pointed to a seat beside him. This seat was also the chairman's seat, but it was beside Huo Xiaoheng's seat. It wasn't at the corner of the table either. It was like sharing the chairman's seat with him. Gu Nianji didn't refuse and walked over gracefully to sit beside him. However, her face was still plain, unlike before when she would smile even when she didn't speak. Huo Xiaoheng knew that she was uncomfortable, but he didn't have the habit of spoiling her in front of others. The two of them could give in to her in private, but in public he would not admit his mistake. Today he had taken the initiative to greet Gu Nianji and ask her to come over, which was already the biggest compromise he had made. Gu Nianji was indeed in a bad mood, but after sitting down she saw Huo Xiaoheng constantly looking at her from the corner of his eye. Even when he was talking to Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi, he didn't forget to pay attention to her reaction. She finally felt better. Under the conference table, she quietly reached out and pinched a piece of flesh on Huo Xiaoheng's thigh. Huo Xiaoheng was talking to Yin Shixiang when his thigh instinctively tensed up. Gu Nianji pinched too hard and one of her fingernails broke with a crack. She quickly retracted her hand and put it in her mouth to bite off the broken fingernail. Hua Xiaoheng noticed Gu Nianji's actions and didn't think much of it. He reached over and took her finger out of her mouth. He said in a low voice, "How old are you? Still biting your fingernails?" Gu Nianji pouted and showed him the broken fingernail. "It's broken." As she spoke, she looked down and glanced at Hua Xiaoheng's thigh. Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and took out his Swiss Army knife. There were nail clippers inside. Holding Gu Nianji's delicate hand, he began to trim her nails. He said with a serious expression, "Don't let your nails grow long in the future. You have to cut them off immediately if they grow out a little." Gu Nianji's earlier gloominess was instantly soothed by Hua Xiaoheng. She smiled seductively and looked around the conference room. When she met two pairs of eyes that were about to pop out of their eye sockets, she tilted her head up proudly and almost snorted. Her queen's aura was on full display. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi quickly looked away. One looked up at the ceiling and the other turned to look at the corner of the room. They both pretended not to see Hua Xiaoheng cutting Gu Nianji's nails. Hua Xiaoheng didn't care at all. After cutting her nails, he lectured Gu Nianji before turning to Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi. That day on the rowboat, Gu Yanran stole the gunman's gun and killed him. I was still in the sea at the time, so I didn't go up. Gu Nianji was originally feeling very happy and was thinking about how to show off their love again. When she suddenly heard such gory content, she froze and asked, "What were you guys talking about just now?" "We were talking about Gu Yanran being held hostage by the gunman." Hua Xiaoheng's expression was normal as he turned to look at her. "Do you want to hear it?" Not only was Gu Yanran held hostage by the gunman, but Hua Xiao also turned the tide and protected Miss Gu from the storm. He personally rescued her. Yin Shixiang finally didn't have to look at the ceiling anymore. He smiled and filled in all the details in his head. Yes, then the two of them went to an isolated island and stayed the night. Zhao Liangzi's words were even more suggestive. He was purely teasing Gu Nianji and wanted to see a little girl get jealous. Of course, they also wanted to see how Hua Xiaoheng would coax her. Before today, they had always thought that boss's hands could only be used as fists to make people dizzy or sniper rifles to kill people from a kilometer away. They didn't think that he could also use nail clippers to cut people's nails. Gu Nianji looked at Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi suspiciously. Resting her chin on her hands, she leaned against the conference table and raised her eyebrows. "What did you say? Were you there at the time?" Yin Shixiang said. "No." Zhao Liangzi said. "Of course not. If you weren't there, then how can you make it sound like it's true? Don't forget, spreading rumors is legally responsible. Are you sure you want to continue spreading rumors?" Gu Nianji said coldly and bluntly. Her small face was tense and she actually had a bit of an imposing aura. Damn it. They actually forgot about Gu Nianji's eloquence. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang wanted to slap themselves. "Nianji, don't be angry. Nianji, don't be angry. We were just joking." Yin Shixiang laughed and patted his mouth. "Actually, we don't know the truth at all. We're just listening to Hua Xiao." Hua Xiaoheng looked at them and was very satisfied with Gu Nianji's reaction. He rested one arm on the back of the chair Gu Nianji was sitting on and wrote a few words with the pen in his other hand. "Okay, stop talking nonsense. I did save Gu Yanran and stayed with her on the Goose Island for a night. However, I waited for rescue on the beach the whole night and didn't stay in her house. Also, I want to take Nianji to see that island." "Does that island have Wi-Fi?" Gu Nianji asked seriously. "No. What's there to go where there's no Wi-Fi?" Gu Nianji waved her hand dismissively. "Let's focus on Gu Yanran's father. But that island is said to be where you lived when you were young. I even saw your room there." Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji looked at each other. There was a faint sense of pity and heartache in the depths of his eyes. This is the first chapter, 3,100 words. A reminder for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Good night, everyone. Chapter 498. Is it really where I lived when I was young? Gu Nianji furrowed her brows in confusion. She glanced at Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi, and saw that they were staring at her and Hua Xiaoheng with wide eyes. She couldn't help but feel shy but also happy. Hua Xiaoheng was becoming more and more intimate with her in front of others. Wasn't she getting closer and closer to being together? Gu Nianji's smile grew. She rested her chin on her hands and tilted her head to look at Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao, I don't remember anything." "You didn't remember anything?" Yin Shixiang laughed at her. "It's not surprising that you don't remember an island." Gu Nianji didn't refute at all. She nodded solemnly. "That's true. So what does this island mean to me? Why should I go see it? Although she had just rebuked Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang and expressed that she would pursue their spreading rumors, she was still affected. When she thought about how Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Yanran were in the same boat and had even spent a night on a small island, she was still a little unhappy even though she trusted Hua Xiaoheng. Therefore, she subconsciously felt conflicted about that island. Maybe seeing a familiar scene will help you regain your memory? Hua Xiaoheng leaned back and patted Gu Nianji's shoulder with his arm on the back of the chair. Don't mess around. Come with me to the Gu's island tomorrow. It's also your home. Fine. Gu Nianji pouted. What about Gu Xiangwen? Aren't we going to see him? That's your father. Hua Xiaoheng corrected her. You can't call him by name like that. Gu Nianji looked down. Her bright eyes darted around, but she didn't let Hua Xiaoheng see it. A father should be a daughter's greatest support, but in Gu Nianji's memory, Gu Xiangwen was always absent. Therefore it was difficult for her to admire him. However, she still needed to show him respect. Fine. Gu Nianji adjusted her emotions and looked up with a smile. How do we get to the island? Is it far? That island is not easy to find. Zhao Liangzi shook his head in disagreement. Hua Xiao, are you going with Gu Yanran? Otherwise, how can we find the location of the island? Gu Nianji was confused and asked curiously, isn't this the Gu family's island? Why couldn't he find it? The satellite map is already connected to the phone. Don't tell me you can't find it. Haha Nianji, I really can't find it. Yin Shixiang slapped the table. Little Zay, tell me. Zhao Liangzi rolled his eyes at Yin Shixiang. He would have said it himself even if Yin Shixiang hadn't reminded him. Nianji, your father is such a great scientist. Not to mention the other blueprints and patents, he had installed a device to block wireless satellite signals on this island. This island could not be found on any map. If it wasn't for the fact that Hua Xiao and Gu Yanran happened to drift near the island that day, we wouldn't have known about its existence at all. Really? Gu Nianji asked calmly, if it's not on the map and we're not locals, it will indeed be very difficult to find it. You don't know what you don't know. She expressed her thoughts in English. Yes, that's what I mean. You don't know what you don't know. Zhao Liangzi smiled like a fox and looked at the confused Yin Shixiang proudly. Big Xiong, people with low IQs can't understand what Nianji and I are talking about. Pretending in front of me? Do you think I don't know what you're capable of? Yin Shixiang snapped back to reality and snorted, unwilling to be outdone. You should think about how to learn the shielding technology on that island. This isn't something that can be learned overnight. Zhao Liangzi rubbed his chin. Luckily, Hua Xiao used his phone to contact us last time, so I was able to confirm the location of the island. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to go even if we wanted to. In the vast ocean, if one didn't have accurate latitude and longitude, they might not be able to find the island again even if they tried their luck. Gu Nianji glanced at Hua Xiaoheng again and asked, Hua Xiao, did that island leave a deep impression on you? If Hua Xiaoheng said it left a deep impression, then Gu Nianji would inevitably infer that it was because he was with Gu Yanran. If Hua Xiaoheng said it didn't leave a deep impression, then Gu Nianji wouldn't hesitate to say that since it didn't leave a deep impression, why would she go again? Her memory was gone anyway, so even if she went to the island, it wouldn't be of any use. Hua Xiaoheng was well aware of Gu Nianji's logic. She had grown up with him after all and was now trying to set a trap for him. Hua Xiaoheng reached out to pat Gu Nianji's head. His voice was as low and melodious as a cello. Of course it left a deep impression because I thought of you on that island. I can't take it anymore. It's against the law to abuse single dogs. Don't treat single dogs as protected animals. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang were simultaneously blinded by the two people's silent gazes and screamed in unison. Gu Nianji was mesmerized by Hua Xiaoheng's smile and ignored Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang's screams. She pulled Hua Xiaoheng's hand away from her head and rubbed her cheek against his palm. She said softly, Really? You really thought of me? The skin on her face was unbelievably smooth, and Hua Xiaoheng's palm felt like a layer of cloud against her face. He didn't dare to use too much force. He felt that if he used too much force, her face would melt like a cloud. He remembered when he used to fly a fighter jet high up in the sky. He had opened the cockpit's roof and reached out to touch the clouds. It felt just like this. Yeah. So are you going or not? Hua Xiaoheng pulled his hand back. After all, it was too much to do in front of two personal secretaries. Gu Nianji didn't stop him. She turned to look at Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang who were covering their eyes. She smiled. All right. That's enough. Brother Xiong, Brother Zay, let's go play on that island together? Let's see what's so good about it that our Hua Xiao can't forget it? She said this deliberately. When she looked at Hua Xiaoheng from the corner of her eyes, the corners of her long and narrow eyes lifted slightly. Hua Xiaoheng ignored her and tapped his fingers on the table. Big Xiong, little Zay, prepare things today. We're going out to sea tomorrow morning. Aren't we going to tell Gu Yanran? Zhao Liangzi tidied up the materials in front of him and stood up. It's her home after all. If we don't tell her, wouldn't it be bad if she finds out? Since the island belonged to the Gus, what was wrong with them entering without asking? Gu Nianji coughed and said to Zhao Liangzi with a straight face, Brother Zay, have you forgotten about me? I've already been proven to be the youngest daughter of the Gus, so I also have a share of that island. If I say you guys can go, you guys can go. You don't have to keep talking about Gu Yanran, okay? Gu Nianji was a little unhappy that both of them kept talking about Gu Yanran. It was like an only child in a family suddenly discovering that they were going to have sisters, brothers, and brothers. There was always a psychological transition period. Yin Shixiang immediately understood and said with a smile, Nianji is right. We, Nianji, also have a share of that island. If we follow Nianji to her home as a guest, who do we need to ask? Hua Xiao, what do you think? Hua Xiaoheng wanted Gu Nianji to have this kind of domineering attitude and not lose to Gu Yanran in terms of aura. He had no idea what kind of relationship these two unrelated sisters had with each other, so he hoped that Gu Nianji could be a little more assertive in this matter. Anyway, it was fine as long as she didn't lose out. Nianji is Gu Xiangwen's youngest daughter. She has more right to speak than we do. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Gu Nianji with a half-smile. Go back and prepare first. We'll leave early tomorrow morning. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang got up and walked out first. Gu Nianji dawdled and stayed behind, wanting to leave with Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng packed up his materials and documents and said without looking up, Why aren't you leaving? I'm waiting for you. Gu Nianji walked up to him confidently and tugged on his sleeve. Hua Xiao, what's wrong with you today? Why did you make me wash off my makeup? Don't you like it? She thought it was pretty good. When she looked in the mirror, she even looked fierce. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. I don't like it. Don't do it like this in the future. He paused, then said, Don't put on makeup in the future. It's best to look like yourself. Really? Hua Xiao, are you complimenting me on my natural beauty? Gu Nianji had already grabbed his arm and rested her head on it. She said happily, Am I prettier than Gu Yanran? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He looked down at Gu Nianji and didn't say anything. His deep eyes were dark like the dark abyss in the silent night. Gu Nianji felt guilty under Hua Xiaoheng's gaze. She could only let go of his arm. Can I just ask? Hua Xiao, you've never complimented me on my beauty? You still need compliments? Hua Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows and closed his briefcase. You want to start a dye factory just because I gave you some color? I'm afraid that if I compliment you, I'll become blind. Why do you say that? Gu Nianji didn't understand the logic behind it. Why would you become blind if I compliment me? Because you're so beautiful that it blinds my eyes. Hua Xiaoheng pinched her chin. Is this okay? So this was Hua Xiao's way of complimenting someone's beauty? Gu Nianji happily stood on her tiptoes and kissed him loudly on the cheek. Hua Xiao, I realize that the way you compliment people is quite unique. Normal people can't take it. You can't take it? Hua Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks and looked down at her. His expression didn't change, but he was already quietly approaching her. Of course I can take it. Because I'm not normal. Gu Nianji waved her little fist. Her infectious laughter echoed in the conference room, and Hua Xiaoheng's mood also brightened. The two of them walked out of the conference room. Gu Nianji's little face looked like it had been smeared with rouge. The corners of her eyes and the tips of her eyebrows were lightly powdered, and she was in high spirits. Everywhere she passed, everyone could only see her beauty. Unfortunately, she didn't have any makeup on. Seeing Gu Nianji like this, Yi Zitan quietly said to Chen Lai. As expected, love is a woman's best makeup. Chen Lai carefully looked at Gu Nianji's even more beautiful face and made up his mind. He turned to Yi Zitan and puffed his cheeks. Little Yi, you look the best without makeup. You look even better than Nianji. The corners of Yi Zitan's mouth twitched. She pursed her lips and resisted the urge to throw the thick instruction manual at Chen Lai's head. She tried to remain calm and said, Dr. Chen, it's better if you call me Dr. Yi. She turned and walked away quickly. Gu Nianji was about to speak to Yi Zitan when she saw that she had already left. She quickly walked to Chen Lai's side. Brother Chen, why did Dr. Yi leave? I still have something to tell her. Chen Lai's entire face was filled with bitterness. He spread his hands. How would I know? You women are so hard to understand. Gun Yinji was deep in thought. She circled Chen Lai twice. Brother Chen, are you really Dr. Yi? She said the word, like, very vaguely because she didn't want anyone else to hear it and embarrass Yi's eaten. What do you mean like? What does a little girl know? Chen Lai shook his fist at her. Let's go. We have to work. Gun Yinji didn't pester Chen Lai anymore. She returned to her room and made a list of things to go out to see. Then she drove out with Yin Shixiang to do some shopping. Wu Xiaoheng was nowhere to be seen. Gun Yinji wasn't in a hurry. No matter how busy he was, he would definitely show up the next morning. Sure enough, Wu Xiaoheng knocked on her door to wake her up for breakfast before dawn the next day. After breakfast, Gun Yinji returned to her room and put on the highest PA sunscreen. She put on the Prada floating cloud sunglasses that covered half her face, a baseball cap and Under Armour sportswear and the same brand of sneakers. She brought her diving equipment and took a private car with Wu Xiaoheng and the others to the seaside. It was past 6 in the morning. The round sun was just about to rise from the horizon in the distance. It was like a beautiful woman with half her face hidden. Her beautiful face had already covered the earth, but she still refused to show her true face. The seawater was a clear and pure blue. It was a huge blue crystal waiting for someone with insight to cut it and collect it. The view of the Caribbean Sea is so beautiful. Gun Yinji expressed her feelings. She clasped her hands in front of her chest and closed her eyes to feel the sea breeze. Where's Hu Xiao? She and Yin Shixiang stood in a dock on a bay and waited for Hu Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi. Apparently they had gone to sail. That's our boat, right? Yin Shixiang squinted his eyes and used his hands to shade his eyes as he looked out to sea. Not long after, the quiet dock was filled with the sound of splashing water and the sound of a motor cutting through the water. Gun Yinji looked into the distance and saw the direction where the sun rose. Amidst the golden light, a pure white bullet-shaped single-story yacht was cutting through the water at high speed. It seemed to be riding the wind and waves from the sun. That's the Millennium Oda that the consulate just bought this year. It's 30 meters long and has a total of 7,800 horsepower. Can seat 15 people and has 3 engines. Not only is it fast, but there are also many places to store our treasures. Yin Shixiang beamed as he patted the long boxes he brought. Gun Yinji's lips twitched. She couldn't bear to look away. Enough with these people. Didn't they think it was romantic to go out to sea? Instead, they brought their long and short snipers and thought about how to find a suitable sniping position on the yacht. Were they going out to sea to hunt? This chapter was 4,200 words. Let me remind you of the monthly votes and recommendation votes. When the 2 chapters were combined, there would be no more at night. I'm still working overtime today. I have to work overtime at the company all weekend. Please forgive me. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 499. Brother Xiong, why did you bring these things out to sea? Gun Yinji walked over and touched the narrow boxes beside Yin Shixiang. They were the boxes for the sniper rifles she had seen when she was with Hu Xiaoheng at the military base. It seemed like they had brought a few anti-material rifles as well. Yin Shixiang slung the long boxes over his shoulder and smiled. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's always better to bring them just in case. Fine, there weren't many people in the world who were so cautious. Gun Yinji didn't hesitate anymore and walked to the shore. She raised her arm high and waved in the direction of the yacht. Wu Xiaoheng was focused on steering the boat in the cockpit. He saw a young woman on the shore waving at them in sports attire that couldn't hide her slender figure. That figure was obviously his Nianji. Wu Xiaoheng smiled and increased the horsepower. The yacht rumbled and sped towards the shore. Hu Xiao, this yacht is beautiful. Gun Yinji boarded the yacht and circled the small space twice before sitting down comfortably in the middle cabin. It was like a small living room with 2 rows of extremely flexible sofas on the east and west sides of the cabin. There was a long fixed table in the middle that served as a coffee table. There were all kinds of cabinets fixed to the wall behind the sofas. The space was fully utilized. Wu Xiaoheng let Yin Shixiang drive the yacht and went to the middle cabin himself. He opened a cabinet and took out a few bottles of iced rum and coconut juice. He placed them on the long table in the middle of the cabin. Gun Yinji opened the cupboard with interest and looked inside. She exclaimed, "So this is a refrigerator. There's a kitchen at the back of the yacht. We can barbecue." Hu Xiaoheng opened the lid of the rum and downed it. Zhao Liangzi's mouth twitched. "Wu Xiao, that's rum, not beer. Do you have to drink so much? Rum can warm you up." I suggest you drink a can too. Hua Xiaoheng placed a can of rum in front of Zhao Liangzi. We're going to dive in the blue hole later. Don't catch a cold. We're going to dive? Is it a deep dive? Gu Nianji was very interested and jumped to Hua Xiaoheng's side. She grabbed his arm and shook it, her eyes shining as she asked, "Can I go?" No. Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi rejected her in unison. There's a blue hole in the sea near the Gu family's island. I want to go down and take a look. The current there is rapid and the water temperature is relatively low. You're a girl, so you shouldn't go diving there. Hua Xiaoheng placed the coconut juice in front of her. Drink some coconut juice, then let Big Xiong take you to sea crab fishing. As soon as she heard that she could fish for crabs, Gu Nianji beamed with joy and nodded quickly. Okay. Brother Xiong and I are fishing for crabs. We'll steam them and wait for you guys to come up and eat. Good girl. Hua Xiaoheng patted her head and walked to the back cabin with Zhao Liangzi to change into his diving suit. Gu Nianji walked to the cockpit and sat on the high stool beside Yin Shixiang. She smiled and said, "Brother Xiong, Hua Xiao asked you to take me fishing for crabs later." Yin Shixiang also wanted to dive in, but he couldn't ignore Hua Xiaoheng's order. With both hands on the rudder, he muttered, "You need someone to guide you when you're fishing for crabs? Don't you know how to fish yourself?" When they were in the Huaxia Empire, they had also gone out to sea to fish for crabs. "I can go alone, but Hua Xiao wants you to accompany me." Gu Nianji tilted her head and moved closer to Yin Shixiang. She looked at his face carefully and smiled. "Huh? You're not happy? You want to dive too?" "Of course." Yin Shixiang glared at her and quickly turned the yacht to avoid a wave not far away. This is the world's famous deep diving area. The quality of the seawater is the best in the world, and it's truly pollution-free. I want to go too. Gu Nianji sighed and secretly looked around the cockpit. She saw Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi changing in the back cabin, so she lowered her voice and said to Yin Shixiang, "Brother Xiong, why don't we wait for them to go into the water and secretly go play too?" Yin Shixiang pursed his lips tightly and stared at her with his eyes. Gu Nianji didn't react for a moment because she was on the consulate's yacht and not at the Special Operations Forces base. She thought there wouldn't be that many listening devices. However, Hua Xiaoheng's voice sounded from one of the yacht's speakers. "Nianji, you want to pretend to agree but secretly oppose?" Gu Nianji was so scared that she covered her ears and almost fell off the high stool. She looked around with some fear and stammered, Hua Xiao, where are you?" She spoke so softly, how could he hear her? Yin Shixiang pointed to an inconspicuous button on the rudder, then pointed to his mouth and ears. Gu Nianji understood. Hua Xiaoheng must have installed an answering device on the rudder for convenience of communication. Coincidentally, he heard Gu Nianji's little plan. Gu Nianji's heart trembled. She trembled as she jumped off the high stool and muttered, I'm a little seasick. I'll go to the cabin in the middle to rest for a while." She ran away as she spoke. Yin Shixiang laughed so hard his shoulders shook. He said to Hua Xiaoheng on the other side of the receiver, "Hua Xiao, you scared Nianji. I can see that her little face is pale." Hua Xiaoheng snorted and ignored the matter. He said to Yin Shixiang, "Little Zhe and I are about to go into the water. Do you remember the direction?" "I remember. The Goose Island is a nautical mile ahead. Are we going to dock at the island's dock?" Yin Shixiang asked very carefully. "Let's take a look outside first." Hua Xiaoheng was very interested in the situation around the island. He especially wanted to know how Gu Xiangguan was able to make the island invisible. If he could find out, it would be of great military value. Current military stealth equipment, such as fighter jets, mostly relied on special coatings to confuse radar signals to achieve the goal of invisibility. However, with the rapid development of satellite technology, stealth for fighter jets was becoming more and more difficult. Therefore, Gu Xiangguan's technology was even more valuable. What's even more rare is that Gu Xiangguan had this technology at least 7 years ago. If he hadn't become a vegetable, I wonder how much better this technology would be. Zhao Liangzi sighed and followed Hua Xiaoheng to put on his diving suit and diving equipment. He stood at the side of the boat and gazed into the distance. The blue hole near the Gu family's island was right in front of them. On the turquoise surface of the sea, there was suddenly a part of the water that was much bluer than the rest. It was a deep blue, so blue that it shone. If the seawater next to the blue hole was aquamarine, then the seawater in the blue hole was the darkest and purest sapphire. From the sky, the abrupt color looked like an eye in the sea, twinkling as it looked up at the blue sky. The shape of the blue hole was a perfect circle. It was unknown whether it was natural or man-made. Let's go down and see if there's anything interesting inside. Wu Xiaoheng waved his hand and was the first to dive into the sea. He had a feeling that Gu Xiangwen was able to make the island invisible, so there must be more than the equipment on the island. Therefore, he also had to carefully explore the environment around the island. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough time and could only take a rough look first. He would explain the situation to his mother, Song Jining, when he returned to China. His mother, Song Jining, was a high-energy physicist and was no stranger to these things. Zhao Liangzi jumped into the sea with Wu Xiaoheng and swam towards the blue hole in front of them. The seawater around the blue hole was obviously darker than other places, so it was easy to distinguish. The diving equipment they carried had all kinds of scientific detection equipment that could capture all kinds of sound and light waves, as well as radio signals. As they swam along the seawater, a variety of colorful tropical fish swam around them. Perhaps it was because this was an uninhabited place, but the fish were not afraid of humans at all. Instead, they playfully swam around them, their large tails swinging and splashing Zhao Liangzi's face. He instinctively dodged to the side and watched the troublemaker swim away with its large tail. He gritted his teeth and said, "I swear I heard that fish laughing at our misfortune." Yin Shixiang's voice sounded over the comms, "Little Zay, fish can't talk, let alone laugh. Did you dive too deep and start hallucinating?" Diske, if I had known earlier I would have swapped. My body is much better than yours. Get lost. Zhao Liangzi shot back at Yin Shixiang. You should be the kindergarten principal and go crab fishing with the kids. Zhao Liangzi. Yin Shixiang was so angry that he pounded on the rudder. The earpiece boomed loudly. Zhao Liangzi smiled happily and quickly swam forward with Wu Xiaoheng. The blue hole was already right in front of them. They could clearly feel that the current there was much more turbulent than elsewhere, and the water was swirling rapidly in one direction. If they were not careful, they would be carried into the ditch, the blue hole on the other side. The two of them spoke through the comms underwater and could even transmit the conversation to the yacht. At that moment, Gu Nianji was lying on a lounge chair by the side of the yacht. She had a long fishing rod by her hand and was fishing in the sea. Her face was covered with a white sun hat and a large parasol on top of the lounge chair. The comms was placed on the small table beside her, so she could hear Wu Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi's conversation. Yin Shixiang sat beside her with a gloomy expression and used a knife to peel a pineapple for her. Of course, the yacht did not continue sailing. It stopped not far from the blue hole and waited for Wu Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi to return. "Hey, it's such a nice day with such a beautiful ocean view. Are you planning to sleep in?" Yin Shixiang was bored after peeling a pineapple and wanted to chat with Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji snatched the hat back and put it on with a smile. "Of course not. I'll see if I can go online. I can also play games. I can't stand you." Yin Shixiang snorted and stood up to sit on the other side of the yacht with his fishing rod. Zhao Liangzi's voice came through the comms. "We're entering the blue hole." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a buzzing sound from the comms, then silence. Gu Nianji glanced at the comms and sat up to pat it. She asked, "Hu Xiao? Brother Zay? Have you guys entered the blue hole?" There was no response from the other side. At that moment, someone also noticed the activity near the blue hole. She thought about it and called Gu Yanran. "Yanran, it's time to make it up to you. Hurry up and go to your family's island. Someone has entered the blue hole." This is the first update, 3,200 words. A reminder for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be an additional update at 7 p.m. Thank you for subscribing, voting, and tipping. Thank you in the group. Chapter 500. What? Gu Yanran, who was in the middle of a body spa from her personal beautician, immediately sat up on the waterbed. Her face was full of shock. Who is it? How did they find that place? She wasn't wearing any clothes and her voluptuous body revealed her full curves. She was as tempting as a ripe peach. Although her personal beautician was a woman and had seen many women's bodies, she still couldn't help blushing and her heart palpitating every time she saw Gu Yanran. The woman on the other end of the phone laughed quietly and teased. "Who else could it be? You're Hu Xiao." Hey. How can you say that? When did he become my Hu Xiao?" Gu Yanran froze and quickly retorted, "Don't say that. He's already taken." Ha! The person didn't continue and only urged her, "Hurry up and go. I'm afraid you'll only be able to collect his corpse if you're late." Gu Yanran knew how dangerous the blue hole near her island was. She gestured to the beautician to leave and said to the person on the phone, "The blue hole over there is a real blue hole. It's not a limestone cave that's a holy place for diving. The water in that blue hole doesn't circulate and there aren't even any fish. How can they be so daring? What are they trying to do? I don't know what they're trying to do, but they're definitely interested in your island. The person on the phone thought about it and said a few words to Gu Yenran. This is a good opportunity. I won't drag you down. Be careful. I'm hanging up. Gu Yenran understood what she meant and pursed her lips. Don't be too hasty. Going too far is as bad as not going far enough. I know what I'm doing. I can't drag you down. The person hung up after saying that. Gu Yenran called again and discovered that the number was no longer in service. She froze and was speechless at this elusive friend of hers. However, she was in a hurry to go out to sea. When she was changing and putting on makeup in the lounge, she had already made several calls to her newly hired butler to arrange a yacht and security personnel to go out to sea with her within 10 minutes. Money made things easier. With the Gu family's power, preparing these things was a matter of minutes. Next to the blue hole in the sea near the Gu family's island, a white bullet-shaped yacht with very smooth lines was floating. Gu Nianji couldn't be bothered to put on her hat. She leaned against the small table and fiddled with the intercom. Her lips were pursed tightly like a thin line, and the lines of her face were even more delicate and fragile. Like porcelain as thin as egg skin, it felt like it would shatter with a single gust of wind. Yin Shixiang nervously sat on the deck next to her and kept rubbing his hands. Little ancestor, don't touch it. If you break it, you won't be able to receive news from Hua Xiao and the others. I couldn't get it in the first place, Gu Nianji said sullenly, her slender, fair fingers in stark contrast to the dark communicator. How could that be? Yin Shixiang tried to explain to her, when you dive into the deep sea, communication with the surface will be affected. Moreover, they went to a place like the blue hole. It's impossible for them to receive a clear signal. Really? Gu Nianji didn't believe him and looked at him suspiciously. Are you sure? You promise? Oh, that's what I said. It's probability. Understand? Of course I understand. Gu Nianji glared at Yin Shixiang. But this communicator is indeed faulty. What if Hua Xiao and the others want to talk to us but can't because of this broken communicator? Who's going to take responsibility? I'll do it. I'll take responsibility. Can I? Little girl, put it down now. Put it down. Yin Shixiang tried his best to persuade her and finally took the communicator back from Gu Nianji's hands. He hugged it to his chest, afraid that Gu Nianji would fiddle with it again. Gu Nianji dusted her hands and got up to go to the cabin to wash her face. She reapplied sunscreen before putting on her sunglasses and walking out. She looked at the azure sea and sky, but she wasn't happy at all. Hugging her legs, she sat on the deck chair and stared unblinkingly at the blue hole in the distance. It was said that the sea was the cradle of life. The blue hole was so deep and blue, but it wasn't a place that nurtured life but a dead end. Because there was no water circulation in the real blue hole, marine life couldn't survive inside. Gu Nianji was so nervous that she wanted to bite her nails, but as soon as she put her fingers in her mouth, she remembered the last time Hua Xiaoheng cut her nails. Her heart ached even more. Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi were also unable to communicate inside the blue hole. As soon as they entered the blue hole's waters, they discovered that it was indeed different from the outside. Everything here was still, as if even the seawater was still. There was no light, no sound, and all they could see was a thick, dark blue that wouldn't melt. As they snuck inside the blue hole, they felt the resistance was unusually strong. And as soon as they entered the blue hole, they discovered that they couldn't communicate freely. There was no visible barrier between the blue hole's seawater and normal seawater, but there was an invisible force that separated the two. Light could pass through and people could swim over, but sound waves and radio waves were coincidentally blocked outside the blue hole. Hua Xiaoheng marveled at the uncanny workmanship of nature and the ingenuity of the creator. He also had a thought. Did Gu Xiangwen use this blue hole to shield the entire island? The island could be seen with the naked eye, but high-tech satellites and sound waves couldn't detect it. Like an outdated GPS, it told you there was a path and there were no obstacles, but the end of the path had already been dug out. Turning a corner didn't lead to a broad road, but to the bottom of a cliff. Zhao Liangzi was very nervous. If he hadn't seen Hua Xiaoheng swimming in front of him, he would have anxiously floated up. Although the fish that had teased him earlier had made him very angry at this moment, he only hoped that another fish like that would come over to tease him. It was for no other reason than to prove that there were other living creatures here besides him and Hua Xiaoheng. But in reality, there were no other living creatures besides him and Hua Xiaoheng. This was a graveyard for underwater creatures. They dove for about 200 meters but still couldn't see the end of the seabed. Zhao Liangzi dove down and came to Hua Xiaoheng's side. He grabbed his arm and wanted to pull him up. Hua Xiaoheng waved his hand at him and pointed in a direction underwater. Zhao Liangzi looked over in confusion. Diagonally below them, in the direction of 6 o'clock, was a shadowy round object that did not seem to be of natural origin. Because that thing was too round, too perfectly round. Zhao Liangzi's geographical knowledge told them that there were no naturally round objects in nature. Go down. Hua Xiaoheng gestured to Zhao Liangzi, and the two of them dove towards the round object. On the surface of the sea, Gu Nianji closed her eyes as the sea breeze blew against her. She slowly lay down on the rattan deck chair. The waves weren't big and they slapped against the side of the boat. The entire yacht was like a bullet-shaped cradle. The swaying yacht was like a cradle, and people couldn't help but feel sleepy. It was also noon and people always felt sleepy after eating and drinking their fill. Gu Nianji originally only wanted to close her eyes to avoid being dazzled by the midday sun, but she soon fell asleep. Although she was asleep, her body was still tense, and she was still worried about Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi's safety. Yin Shixiang sat on the other deck chair next to her with a fishing rod in front of him. However, his attention wasn't on the fishing rod, but on the communication device. He had to be ready to receive messages from Hua Xiaoheng and the others at any time. The white Millennium Odo was very conspicuous on the azure sea, and a 10-person speedboat quickly spotted it. Is this it? It should be. There's only one white yacht near the blue hole. Let's go to the blue hole first. The people on the speedboat put on their diving suits and swam towards the blue hole. They carried a special device that could send messages from the blue hole. Not long after, they entered the blue hole's range and turned on their devices to make it easier to communicate with each other. At that moment, Gu Nianji, who had fallen asleep on the wicker chair on the deck, suddenly felt a very slight vibration. It was like a breeze blowing through the treetops, or like a kitten sticking out its tongue and licking her fingernails. It was extremely gentle, but it couldn't be ignored. She thought it was the force of the waves pushing against the yacht, so she didn't pay it much attention. She turned over on the deck chair and wanted to continue sleeping. After a while, the vibration became more obvious and it was very rhythmic. Once, twice, thrice it repeatedly touched her skin. Gu Nianji opened her eyes abruptly and discovered that the vibration had disappeared. She turned her head and looked around. On the vast sea, the boundary between the sky and the sea had disappeared. Everywhere was blue. For a moment she didn't know where the sky was and where the sea was. There was a sense of confusion in her perception of direction and location. Gu Nianji rubbed her forehead and turned to see Yin Shixiang sitting next to her with his arms crossed and eyes closed. She got up and pushed him. Brother Xiong, don't you think the waves are a bit strange? Strange how? They keep shaking. Don't you feel it? This is the second update. Let me remind you about the monthly votes and recommendation votes. It's the middle of the month. Do you have the monthly votes for your relatives? Chapter 501. Yin Shixiang closed his eyes to feel it and shook his head after a while. There's no vibration, only the shaking of the sea. Are you talking about this feeling? Gu Nianji also closed her eyes and slowly stood up. Standing at the bow of the boat, she stretched out her arms and allowed her body and mind to relax as she sensed her surroundings. As soon as she closed her eyes, the feeling became even more obvious. The vibration was already the weak strength of a kitten's fingers, but it gradually increased until it felt like raindrops hitting her face. It was also a bit tingling. However, when she opened her eyes, the sky was clear and the sea was blue. A gentle breeze blew, and the sea and sky were the same color. There wasn't a single cloud in the clear blue sky, so where did the raindrops come from? But what was that tingling feeling that felt like raindrops hitting her face? Gu Nianji began to feel irritated. Brother Xiong, can you contact Hua Xiao and Brother Zhe? Gu Nianji walked to Yin Shixiang's side and sat down. She leaned forward slightly and rested her chin on her knees with her hands. Her large eyes stared at Yin Shixiang without blinking. Yin Shixiang shook his head with a sullen expression. Stop rushing me. I'm going to panic if you do. It's fine, communication doesn't work well during deep dives. I've experienced this many times. Think of it this way, no news is good news, right? His words didn't calm Gu Nianji's nerves, especially when she closed her eyes. She could feel the vibration getting stronger and stronger. The vibration was gradually matching the frequency of her heartbeat. She couldn't control her panic at all. Gu Nianji stood up again and paced around the deck. She occasionally stopped to hold onto the snow-white railing of the yacht and look in the direction of the blue hole. At that moment, Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi had already dived into the blue hole to where the round object was. The water temperature was very low. Their special diving suits were supposed to keep them warm, but it wasn't enough in this place. Zhao Liangzi felt his body temperature slowly decrease and he began to feel cold. Their communicators somehow stopped working as soon as they entered the blue hole. They could only communicate with each other in sign language. Fortunately, they could still see each other. Otherwise, the situation would have worsened. It's actually a big stone ball. Hua Xiaoheng swam around the round object and signed to Zhao Liangzi. Do you want to measure the density of the stone ball? See if it's hollow? Zhao Liangzi took out an instrument and fixed it around the stone ball. He began measuring. Hua Xiaoheng held the sniper rifle that he carried with him and swam to the other side of the crevice to guard him. Ordinary guns would be affected when they were underwater. The speed of the bullet would be hindered by the current, making it difficult for it to hit the target. Because Hua Xiaoheng and his team often carried out missions in unusual environments, their guns had all been modified. The sniper rifle in his hands was a silent heavy sniper rifle that was very suitable for underwater environments. Not long after they divided the work, there was a sudden fluctuation in the quiet waters. Hua Xiaoheng keenly sensed that something was wrong. He was about to swim out from the crack in the rock to drag Zhao Liangzi over when he saw a black shadow swiftly swimming over from afar. That black shadow was unbelievably fast. When Hua Xiaoheng first saw the black shadow, he thought it was a sea snake-like animal. He was still wondering why a sea snake would appear in the blue hole, which was claimed to have no living creatures in the sea. In the end, before he could finish thinking, the black shadow had already swam close to them. It was less than 10 meters away from them. Such a fast speed was comparable to any human world record for water sports. Hua Xiaoheng's pupils suddenly contracted. It was obvious now that the black shadow was not a sea snake at all. It was a person. The person was slender and incredibly soft, just like a sea snake. He was so fast that he seemed to be one with the water. Before Hua Xiaoheng could react, he was less than a meter away from Zhao Liangzi. Hua Xiaoheng didn't have time to think. His body was faster than his mind. He instinctively raised his sniper rifle with both hands, pressed his lips tightly together, and fired a shot at the person's chest. The person didn't seem to realize that someone could be faster than him. He didn't take any protective measures at all. He raised his arm, and a bright flash of a knife instantly illuminated the dark blue underwater world. Zhao Liangzi instinctively tilted his head at the flash of the knife. He only realized that someone was coming, and that person was waving a knife at him. Everything happened so suddenly. He was about to dodge when he saw a spray of blood suddenly appear from the person's chest. The person only felt a chill in his chest. Before he could feel the sharp pain, he had already closed his eyes forever. Even in death, he was still tightly holding the knife in his hand. Zhao Liangzi knew that Hua Xiaoheng was covering for him. He quickly packed the most important equipment and hung it on his body. He swam in Hua Xiaoheng's direction. Hua Xiaoheng was anxious. If those people hadn't arrived yet, Hua Xiaoheng would have taken the initiative to drag Zhao Liangzi over. No one had seen him hiding here, so it would be best to help Zhao Liangzi be on guard. But now that someone was here and Zhao Liangzi still wanted to come to his side, it would expose Hua Xiaoheng's location. There must be someone behind them. They could immediately follow Zhao Liangzi's direction and trap the two of them. Hua Xiaoheng's mind raced. He immediately swam out of his hiding place and changed to another place to hide. Zhao Liangzi came to the crack in the rock where Hua Xiaoheng had been hiding. He didn't see him and suddenly became nervous. He was afraid that something had happened to him. But looking around, other than the person who had been shot down by Hua Xiaoheng's underwater sniper rifle, no one else was injured. Hua Xiao should be safe, right? Zhao Liangzi comforted himself, but he also came back to his senses. He knew that he shouldn't have recklessly run to Hua Xiaoheng's hiding place. Just like on the battlefield, if the soldier being covered suddenly ran to the hiding place of the soldier covering him, it would only expose everyone to the enemy's artillery. Therefore, Zhao Liangzi didn't look for Hua Xiaoheng again. Instead, he hid in the crack in peace. Hua Xiaoheng watched from behind a nearby rock for a while. Seeing that Zhao Liangzi didn't appear again, he finally relaxed and looked in the direction the person had swum from. If he hadn't guessed wrong, this person was definitely not alone. He just didn't know how Gu Nianji and Yin Shixiang were doing. Hua Xiaoheng calmly checked the custom-made sniper rifle in his hand and set it on the rock. He even removed the scope. Because the scope might reflect light in the water, it would be counterproductive. Not long after, as expected, another person swam over. This time it wasn't one person. There were 3 people swimming over in a triangular formation. All of them were wearing pitch-black diving suits made of sharkskin. They weren't holding knives in their hands but guns like Hua Xiaoheng. A gun that could be used underwater must be extraordinary. Hua Xiaoheng became even more calm. He hid behind the rock and aimed the scope at the person swimming in front. Bang! Another dull gunshot pierced the silence of the sea. The person swimming in front spasmed, and a stream of blood flowed from his body. He hugged his gun and spun in the water as he sank. The blue hole didn't seem to have an end. The man's body and the person Hua Xiaoheng had knocked down earlier continued to fall with the flow of the water until they couldn't be seen anymore. No one knew where they ended up. The other 2 people seemed to be frightened by Hua Xiaoheng's elusive marksmanship. They stopped for a moment in unison, then desperately swam back. Now that their backs were facing Hua Xiaoheng, it was even easier to deal with them. Hua Xiaoheng was expressionless as he raised his gun from behind the rock. Another 2 gunshots rang out, and the last 2 people were also shot down by Hua Xiaoheng. They fell into the blue hole. Zhao Liangzi breathed a sigh of relief. He reached out in Hua Xiaoheng's direction from behind the rock and gave him a thumbs up proudly. Hua Xiaoheng gestured to him not to move, then he had to move to another place. This was also in the inaccessible blue hole. If it was on land, snipers would move to another place after each shot. They would never fire twice in the same place. Zhao Liangzi nodded and obediently retreated. He continued to fiddle with his device, trying to contact Yin Shixiang and the others on the surface. They waited for 15 minutes. Seeing that no one else was coming, Hua Xiaoheng swam to the rock where Zhao Liangzi was hiding. He signed to him to quickly leave the blue hole and return to the yacht. Zhao Liangzi nodded quickly and swam out with Hua Xiaoheng with the device on his back. However, when they swam to the border between the blue hole and the surrounding normal water, they realized there was a problem. When they swam in, there was no barrier, only the color of the water was different. However, when they were about to swim out, they discovered that there seemed to be an invisible wall between the blue hole and the surrounding normal water. Although they couldn't see it, their bodies could feel it. As soon as they swam forward, their bodies felt like they had been electrocuted. The vibrations were so strong that their internal organs were about to shift. Zhao Liangzi's physical fitness was slightly weaker. He only collided with Hua Xiaoheng once, but his internal organs were already severely damaged. He spat out a mouthful of blood and dirted his diving mask. What's going on? Why is there an electric fence here? Zhao Liangzi panted and started signing to Hua Xiaoheng. Should we try another direction? The electric fences currently sold on the market weren't invisible fences that had nothing to rely on. They had to have a physical detection fence, then add an electronic circuit to the fence and connect it to the mainframe. When the fence was hit, it would generate an electronic pulse signal to shock and deter trespassers. However, Zhao Liangzi and Hua Xiaoheng knew that the military's electric fences had long surpassed the limits of physical fences and were completely electronic pulse signals. There were many advantages of an electric fence that was completely electronic pulse signals. It was invisible, safe, easy to install and carry, and could be set up anywhere as long as a small electronic mainframe was brought along. However, as far as they knew, no country could set up such a large electric fence around the underwater blue hole. Let's try again. Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi split up to test the edge of the blue hole, trying to find a place that wasn't surrounded by the electric fence. However, they tried for a full hour and were almost paralyzed by the electric fence, but they still couldn't find a gap in the electric fence. This is the first update, 3,200 words. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Especially the recommendation votes. Today is Monday and recommendation votes are very important. There will be an additional update at 7 p.m. And there may be a surprise for the Qidian app's relatives. Remember to refresh at 7 p.m. Repeat the important thing 3 times. You must subscribe to the official version to see the surprise. The relatives of the Qidian app may have to wait, there will be a surprise in the future. Mwah. Chapter 502. What do we do? Hua Xiao, we can't get out. Zhao Liangzi gestured excitedly and looked at Hua Xiaoheng in despair. Hua Xiaoheng retreated further away from the edge of the blue hole. Although he was more resistant than Zhao Liangzi, being electrocuted for an hour was not a good feeling. Let's go up and take a look. Hua Xiaoheng pointed at the surface of the blue hole. They didn't want to surface. Since there were people chasing them, they would be easy targets if they surfaced. If Hua Xiaoheng was the one chasing them, he would definitely do the same. He would force them to surface and then kill them one by one like he was shooting targets. But if they didn't surface now, there was no way out. Although Hua Xiaoheng was their enemy, he couldn't help but admire this kind of technological breakthrough. They were able to overcome technical difficulties in seawater and achieve an electric fence. If only they could master this kind of technology, Hua Xiaoheng sighed in his heart and quickly floated to the surface of the blue hole. Zhao Liangzi had no choice but to follow. 1 meter, 2 meters, 10 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, they were about to reach the surface of the blue hole. They could even see the light shining through the blue water. I'll go up first. Hua Xiaoheng signed to Zhao Liangzi. Don't show your head. No. Zhao Liangzi quickly grabbed Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng was the commander. His life was much more valuable than Zhao Liangzi's. Zhao Liangzi didn't want him to be a target. He couldn't bear it. Hua Xiaoheng signed to him. I react faster than you, so I'll be fine if I go up. Something will definitely happen if you go up. Zhao Liangzi was speechless. Although it was the truth, hearing it made him cry. He watched as Hua Xiaoheng pushed off with both legs and swam up to the surface. Zhao Liangzi watched Hua Xiaoheng and found it difficult to breathe. The oxygen they brought was probably running out. Looking up at the blue surface, Hua Xiaoheng's figure had already shrunk into a small ball and was quickly disappearing. Zhao Liangzi hugged a bunch of instruments and looked up. He couldn't calm down for a long time. Hua Xiaoheng swam close to the blue hole's surface. The light was getting brighter and brighter, almost blinding. He covered his forehead with one arm and held a small instrument in his other hand. He tried to poke it at the surface of the sea. A crackling sound rang out. There was a flash of bluish-purple electricity. Although the instrument in Hua Xiaoheng's hand was made of insulating material, it still caused his wrist to go numb. As expected, even the surface of the sea was equipped with an electric fence. The entire blue hole was tightly surrounded by high-voltage electric fences, like a sealed blue bucket. He and Zhao Liangzi were like two fish in a bucket. Wasn't this the same as catching a turtle in a jar? For the first time he felt that the saying, "Heaven doesn't answer, earth doesn't answer," was not an exaggeration, but a true portrayal of reality. Gritting his teeth, Hua Xiaoheng's face tightened. Unwilling to give up, he continued to use the instrument to test the sea level. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. A series of bluish-purple electric arcs flew up and jumped on the deep blue sea. They were like maple leaves in autumn being illuminated by the sun, shining like pieces of gold. It was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off it. However, Hua Xiaoheng was not in the mood to admire the beautiful scenery. His heart continued to sink, and just like the blue hole, it sank to an unknown place. He had no idea where it was. Less than a nautical mile away from the sea level that Hua Xiaoheng was testing, there was a long and narrow dark blue yacht quietly floating on the sea. Its color was very similar to the blue hole's color. From a distance, it was almost impossible to tell where the blue hole was and where the yacht was. It was very confusing. A middle-aged woman stood at the bow of the yacht. She had thick bangs and her face was like a silver plate. Large black-rimmed glasses covered half her face, and her long, straight hair fell to her shoulders. She wore a slim-fitting dress, and although she was slightly voluptuous, her figure was very attractive. The woman held a pair of binoculars and looked at the bluish-purple arc on the surface of the blue hole. She snickered. Still not giving up? Then increase the current. Yes. Her subordinates quickly activated the instrument and increased the voltage of the electric fence around the blue hole. When Hua Xiaoheng tested the sea level for the last time, the voltage was increased, and the crackling bluish-purple electricity completely destroyed the instrument in his hand. If he hadn't hurriedly let go, he might have been electrocuted again. Gu Nianji frowned and stood motionlessly at the bow of the yacht. She had been standing there for half an hour. She became more and more nervous, and the vibration she felt grew stronger. Previously she could only feel it with her eyes closed, but now she could feel it with her eyes open. Brother Xiong, you really can't feel the vibration? Gu Nianji turned around again to confirm with Yin Shixiang. Yin Shixiang still shook his head, but he was no longer as certain as half an hour ago that Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji were fine. Nianji, why don't we drive closer to take a look? Yin Shixiang didn't insist. He was also very nervous. Although he didn't feel it as directly as Gu Nianji, his years of special work told him that something was wrong. Okay, let's go there. Gu Nianji pointed in the direction of the blue hole. I feel the strongest over there. It could be said that all the vibrations she felt came from that direction. Yin Shixiang looked at the direction Gu Nianji was pointing, and gestured the coordinates. After confirming it, he went to the cockpit to steer the yacht. Their yacht was a new model this year and its performance was very good, especially its speed. It rode the wind and waves on the sea as fast as a bolt of white lightning. "Miss Yamaguchi, the yacht is coming over." A man with a goatee walked to the middle-aged woman holding binoculars at the bow of the yacht and whispered to her. He even pointed in the direction of the white yacht. "That fast?" The middle-aged woman moved the binoculars in the direction of the white yacht in surprise. Why is she here?" The middle-aged woman's expression changed instantly. However, the large black-rimmed glasses and binoculars almost covered her entire face, so no one saw her expression change in an instant. When she removed the binoculars, her expression had already returned to normal. This is going to be a good show." The middle-aged woman passed the binoculars to the goatee man with a half-smile. "Get the snipers ready. Leave no one alive on that white yacht. Throw them all into the blue hole." Great, they didn't even have to deal with the corpses. Walking into the narrow cabin, the middle-aged woman almost laughed out loud. She had planned for so long, and now she was about to succeed for no reason at all. She thought about how hard it had been for her to set up the trap, but she didn't know who had ruined it. But Gunyenji was going to die anyway, so what difference did it make if she died earlier or later? She could wear out iron shoes and fruitless searching, but by chance she would find it by chance. Not only should there be applause, but there should also be good wine. She tilted her head back and downed an entire glass of tequila. A faint blush quickly appeared on her pale face, and her plain appearance became even more seductive. Gunyenji stood at the bow of the white yacht and watched the blue hole get closer and closer. She was burning with anxiety and was about to throw caution to the wind to put on her diving suit and search for Hua Xiaoheng and the others when she suddenly saw something floating in the area between the blue hole and normal seawater. She quickly rushed to the cabin and found the most powerful binoculars. Leaning against the window, she peered into the turbulent area. A boat. There was actually a boat there. Or rather, it was also a yacht. It looked similar to their Millennium Oda, both streamlined. However, their yacht was like a shuttle with two pointed ends, while the Millennium Oda was shaped like a bullet. A yacht floated at the edge of the blue hole, and the color of the yacht was so similar to the color of the blue hole's seawater. If Gunyenji didn't have good eyesight and had a premonition that something was wrong, it would have been very difficult for most people to discover the dark blue yacht. Gunyenji's intuition told her that the yacht's purpose was not simple. Just like herself, it wasn't for sightseeing. However, she didn't need to look for evidence, because the other party had already raised the pitch-black muzzle and aimed at their yacht. With a loud bang, a heavy armor-piercing bullet cut through the air and spun towards the yacht's window. Gunyenji only had time to lie flat on the ground. The bullet barely missed her head by a centimeter before passing through the other side of the yacht. It directly pierced through their yacht. The Millennium Oda jolted violently in the waves, and Yin Shixiang was almost thrown off. He heard the gunshot and also saw the person holding a sniper rifle on the yacht nearby. His face darkened as he cursed, "Motherf *Ker. I haven't even fired yet. He dares to open fire. He really doesn't want to live anymore." As he spoke, he stopped the yacht again and called into the intercom, "Nyenji, bring the sniper rifle in here. This is the first update? Let me remind you about the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Especially the recommendation votes. Today is Monday, so recommendation votes are very important. I was supposed to give everyone a surprise today, but the beta test went crazy and I couldn't send it out. I'll see if the test is good tomorrow. Tears." Chapter 503. When Gunyenji heard Yin Shixiang's voice, she quickly climbed up from the deck and rushed to the cabinet where Yin Shixiang kept the gun boxes. She took out the longest gun box and hugged it to her chest as she pounced toward Yin Shixiang's cockpit. She almost jumped onto the deck of the cockpit because another armor-piercing bullet whistled in and pierced through the yacht again. Yin Shixiang's expression was fierce as he kicked the gun box away from Gunyenji's hands. He reached for the gun box and grabbed the back of the rudder to open it. Within 15 seconds he had assembled an AMR. Gunyenji had just crawled to Yin Shixiang's feet on her knees. Hearing the click of the gun bolt, she looked up and saw that Yin Shixiang was already walking out of the cockpit with the black barrel on his shoulder. "Stay here and don't come out." Yin Shixiang didn't even look back as he walked out of the cockpit and locked the cockpit door. The cockpit was the safest in the entire yacht. The cabin door and body were both bulletproof, but the other cabins weren't as sturdy. The small living room Gunyenji had been in earlier had been pierced by a heavy armor-piercing bullet, but that kind of bullet couldn't penetrate the cockpit. "Brother Xiong, don't lock the door." Gunyenji rushed over and banged on the cockpit door. "I can help you be the spotter." Gunyenji had learned some basic military knowledge from Hua Xiaoheng. For example, snipers usually appeared in pairs, a gunner and a spotter. Of course, Yin Shixiang wouldn't let Gu Nianji help him be a spotter. What kind of joke was that? If the little girl broke even a little skin, not only would Hua Xiaoheng flip out, Yin Shixiang himself wouldn't forgive himself. This was a girl they had personally raised and they couldn't wait to feel sorry for her. Gu Nianji banged on the door for a long time, but Yin Shixiang didn't respond. He crouched on the bow with the AMR and used a large swimming ring to cover himself as he aimed at the enemy sniper. To him, the enemy sniper wasn't a tough nut to crack because he had a scope on the sniper rifle. It flashed against the sunlight and a bright spot appeared in Yin Shixiang's field of vision. He calmly used the triangular ruler as a scope, and at the same time, estimated the wind speed on the sea and the other party's position. After 2 minutes, Yin Shixiang squeezed the trigger. Bang! His AMR was equipped with a silencer, but because the distance was too far, the bullet whistled through the air when it was halfway through its trajectory. This type of anti-material sniper rifle was so fast that the high-speed bullets even created a sonic boom effect. By the time the sniper on the enemy's ship heard the sonic boom of the bullet had already arrived in front of him. It smashed the scope of the sniper's scope and continued to fly forward, shooting straight into his forehead. The sniper didn't even make a sound. He lay down behind the sniper rifle, twitched a few times and then stopped moving. Substitute. The middle-aged woman stood in the cabin and watched as the other party knocked out one of their snipers. She remained unmoved and calmly gave an order. Another sniper took his place. The sniper that Yin Shixiang had killed earlier was thrown into the blue hole. Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi leaned against a stone crevice inside the blue hole. They were running out of oxygen. In order to conserve oxygen, the two of them shared an oxygen mask. One inhaled, the other inhaled, and tried to maintain a long interval between each inhalation. Hua Xiao, will Big Xiong and Yanji be okay? Zhao Liangzi gestured to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng also gestured back. I hope not. He said, I hope not, but not, definitely not. Zhao Liangzi's heart sank. He rubbed the communicator in his hand and finally made up his mind. He gestured to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiao, I want to try repairing the communicator again. If the communicator wasn't repaired, they could only wait for death here. The other party had already made it clear that they wanted to trap them in the blue hole and suffocate them. They couldn't get out, so they could only hope that the people on the sea could rescue them. Hua Xiaoheng knew that they had no other choice. They could only try their best. Whether the communicator was broken or not, the result would be the same. Let's try. Hua Xiaoheng gestured and shifted his gaze to the sea in front of them. In the depths of the blue hole it was all blue. There were no colorful fish or beautiful corals. Everything was lifeless except for Hua Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi. Hua Xiaoheng quietly looked at the water in front of him and suddenly wondered what Gu Nianji was doing at this time. Was she sunbathing on a rattan chair on the deck? Or was she barbecuing crabs in preparation for a feast? Or had she discovered that the communicator was broken and was anxiously forcing Yin Shixiang to repair it? At the thought that he might inexplicably capsize here this time, he felt an indescribable pain in his heart. This was a feeling that he had never felt before as he faced death with equanimity. He couldn't just sit and wait. Hua Xiaoheng tightened his grip on the AMR and narrowed his eyes. He was determined to go to the sea again. At that moment, the calm waters of the blue hole suddenly rippled. Hua Xiaoheng looked up and saw something falling from above. He quickly turned on the telescope function of his diving goggles and saw that it was a corpse. An idea popped into his head. Little Zay, wait for me. I'll be right back. He turned around and shoved his oxygen tank into Zhao Liangzi's arms. Then he kicked off the stone wall of the crevice and leaped out like a fish. Zhao Liangzi was surprised to find that Hua Xiaoheng had also left his oxygen tank for him. He was touched and anxious. Although he had gone on many missions with Hua Xiaoheng, it had never been as dangerous as this. And at a time like this, when only one of them could survive, Hua Xiaoheng had actually given him hope. What else could he say to such a general, such a commander, and such a boss? Zhao Liangzi's diving goggles were filled with mist. He knew he shouldn't cry at a time like this, but he couldn't help it. Hua Xiaoheng caught the body that had fallen from the surface of the sea. He grabbed the collar of the body and pulled it to the side of a stone wall in the blue hole. After a closer look, he realized that the person had been shot in the head with a single shot. This was Yin Shixiang's usual fighting style, and the bullet hole in the person's forehead was obviously caused by the Special Forces' special bullets. Hua Xiaoheng was half relieved and half nervous. He was relieved that Yin Shixiang and his men must have realized something was wrong and were already exchanging fire. He was nervous that Yin Shixiang and Gun Yanji were the only two people on the yacht. Would they be able to deal with the vicious robbers? More importantly, he didn't know how many people there were this time. Hua Xiaoheng's expression darkened when he thought that Gun Yanji was already in danger. He turned his large hand and grabbed the clothes on the back of the corpse to use it as a meat shield. Then he quickly moved his legs and swam towards the surface of the blue hole. This time, with the corpse helping him isolate the electric fence on the surface of the blue hole, Hua Xiaoheng successfully floated to the surface. He took a deep breath and his entire body was supplied with oxygen. His mind was 100 times clearer than before. He actually floated up? The middle-aged woman on the dark blue yacht put down her binoculars and cursed through gritted teeth. A bunch of useless people. They don't even know how to catch turtles in a jar. Beat them up. Aim at that person. She fiercely ordered Hua Xiaoheng, who had just floated up to the surface of the blue hole. Hua Xiaoheng only floated up to take a breath before diving back into the blue hole. Unfortunately, he didn't have an oxygen tank. Otherwise, he could directly use the corpse as a meat shield and directly pass through the electric fence to swim to normal seawater. Because his current position was closer to the blue hole's surface and further away from the blue hole's boundary, he had no choice but to use the corpse to occasionally float to the surface to catch his breath. Then he would dive back into the water and swim step by step towards the blue hole's edge. The sniper on the yacht was quite good and almost hit Hua Xiaoheng a few times. Hua Xiaoheng held the corpse in one hand and the sniper rifle in the other. He couldn't aim at all and could only fire a few shots at random. He didn't pose a threat at all. The middle-aged woman saw that she hadn't hit the person in the diving suit after so long and guessed that it was Hua Xiaoheng. Otherwise, how could he be so skilled? Perfect, you two can go to hell together and be a pair of doomed lovebirds. The middle-aged woman's lips curled into a sinister smile as she took the sniper rifle from her subordinate and personally aimed in Hua Xiaoheng's direction. Her marksmanship was much better than her subordinate's snipers. Hua Xiaoheng could only hear the continuous sounds of gunfire as water splashed around him. The splashing water blurred his vision through his diving goggles, and in a moment of carelessness, the enemy's bullets pierced through the diving suit on his arm and scraped off a layer of oil. Soaking his injured skin in seawater was like rubbing salt on the wound. Hua Xiaoheng gritted his teeth and exploded with courage at the most critical moment. Looking up and seeing the blue shuttle-like yacht, he simply threw the corpse in the direction of the gunshots. At the same time, he raised the sniper rifle in his other hand and fired several shots at the yacht. The sniper rifle was as dense and powerful as a machine gun. The gunshots from his side finally reached the Millennium Oda where Gun Yanji and the others were. Gun Yanji held the binoculars and saw the figure in the water who was still locked in combat with the enemy's sniper on the yacht. Was Hua Xiaoheng. Gun Yanji's heart jumped and sank at the same time. She saw the bloody trail on Hua Xiaoheng's arm through the binoculars. He was injured. How could he be injured? Gun Yanji's gaze gradually became frenzied and fierce. She tossed the binoculars away and pounded on the cabin door with all her might. Let me out. Let me out. Yin Shixiang ignored her and continued to steadily aim his sniper rifle at the bow of the yacht to exchange fire with the enemy's sniper. Gun Yanji knew Yin Shixiang wouldn't open the door. In a moment of desperation, she looked at the rudder and the distance between them and the enemy's yacht. She gritted her teeth and rushed to the bridge. It only took her 3 minutes to familiarize herself with the bridge's automatic controls. Yin Shixiang's key was still in the rudder's keyhole. Gun Yanji's face was as pale as snow. She used all her strength to turn the key and ignite the yacht's engine. She activated the yacht's autopilot function and charged straight at the enemy's yacht with both hands on the rudder. Jump into the sea. They don't want to live. As soon as the middle-aged woman's subordinates saw the white bullet-shaped yacht that was twice the size of their yacht braving the wind and waves, crashing into the side of their ship with a suicidal stance, all of them jumped into the sea without saying a word. Miss Yamaguchi. Jump into the sea. They're coming. Our yacht can't hold them off. The middle-aged woman's subordinate anxiously grabbed her arm. The middle-aged woman didn't expect Gun Yanji to be so crazy and charged towards them with a suicidal stance. She wanted Gun Yanji to die, but she never wanted to die with her. You win. The middle-aged woman threw away the sniper rifle in her hand and regretfully looked at Hua Xiaoheng, who was about to be shot to death in the sea. At the last moment before Gun Yanji's Millennium Oda crashed into their yacht, she jumped into the sea with her subordinates wearing life jackets. This was the first update, 3,500 words. A reminder for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There would be an additional update at 7 p.m. There was a group chat. He didn't dare to guarantee any more surprises. In any case, when his relatives read the latest updates in the next few days, they would definitely see the last page. Chapter 504. Nianji. Nianji. What are you doing? Yin Shixiang watched as his yacht slammed into the deep blue yacht like an arrow and panicked. He hugged the AMR and went to the cockpit to open the door. He was too nervous and used a lot of effort to open the door he had locked from the inside. Inside the cockpit, Gu Nianji's back was facing him. Her slender body stood straight and her hands gripped the rudder tightly as she stared straight ahead. The deep blue yacht was already right in front of them. Yin Shixiang closed his eyes and threw away the AMR in his hands. The moment the two yachts collided, he lunged over and hugged Gu Nianji tightly from behind. He used himself as a safety belt to secure her between the bridge and his embrace. The huge impact of the collision made Gu Nianji's bones crack. Fortunately, Yin Shixiang was protecting her from behind, so she wasn't thrown out by the huge inertia. However, Yin Shixiang's hand on the bridge's handle was already bleeding from the impact. Gu Nianji turned around and was shocked to see a trace of blood flowing from the corner of Yin Shixiang's mouth. Brother Xiong. Why are you bleeding? Yin Shixiang felt a sweet metallic taste coming from his throat. He endured the intense pain of his arms almost breaking from the inertia and said hoarsely to Gu Nianji, "It's because of you." Gu Nianji was speechless. Fine, he could still joke around, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Gu Nianji turned around and realized that the yacht was rocking continuously in the waves. The blue shuttle-shaped yacht in front of them was only half the size of their Millennium Oda, so it had been knocked upside down on the surface of the sea. Their yacht didn't seem to have suffered any major damage at the moment, but because of the huge impact, it was unbalanced. The impact caused the sea to undulate up and down, making people dizzy. Gu Nianji, who had never been carsick, couldn't take it anymore. Her face turned even paler and she clenched her teeth to prevent herself from vomiting. Yin Shixiang didn't feel good either, but he still firmly held Gu Nianji in place, not wanting her to be injured by the inertia. The people on the deep blue yacht that they had knocked over used all their strength to swim out of the water where the two yachts collided. However, the huge wave that followed still swept a few of them back to the waters where the blue hole was. They didn't have time to remove the electric fence that they had set up here, so it was still electrified. A series of crackling purplish-blue electric arcs lit up above the blue hole, and those people screamed in pain as they were electrocuted to death, falling into the range of the blue hole. The middle-aged woman floated in the sea with two capable subordinates protecting her. Looking up at the scene, she was both surprised and proud, angry and resentful. She stared at the white yacht that had knocked them over with her vicious eyes, wishing she could slap the word, "death," on it. "Miss Yamaguchi, what should we do?" Her subordinates watched in horror as their own people were instantly charred by the electric arcs at the edge of the blue hole. They were all terrified. They were all outlaws and weren't afraid of death, but they couldn't die in such a way that left no bones behind. "What are you afraid of?" The middle-aged woman looked around. "Go that way. The Gu family's island isn't far away. It'll take about an hour of swimming." Their luck wasn't bad. They didn't swim far before they saw another black yacht speeding over. This yacht was larger than their own blue yacht and the white yacht from before. It was like a small 3-story luxury cruise ship, but it had a lot of horsepower, so it was extremely fast. The middle-aged woman floating in the sea saw the big cursive "Ku" on the side of the black yacht and finally sighed in relief. Her eyes sparkled as she said to her two subordinates, "There's a yacht coming over. Quickly release the signal flare and ask for help." The subordinates obeyed her and quickly took out the signal flare they carried with them and fired into the air. Gu Yanran sat in the hall on the 3rd floor of the black yacht and looked anxiously at the waters in front of her. She saw the purplish-blue electric arc from so far away, and her heart skipped a beat. She almost fell to the ground. Standing in front of the window, she clasped her hands together, closed her eyes and murmured prayers to the god of the sea. "Miss Gu, do you also believe in Christ?" A tall white man stood behind her and looked at her with his arms crossed with interest. The white man was a security guard hired by Gu Yanran. She turned around and smiled at him. "James, I pray to the god of the sea, Poseidon. I hope that the people I care about are fine and I hope that everyone is well. I've had enough of being separated by life and death." James' expression became serious as he nodded at Gu Yanran. "Miss Gu, God will hear your prayers and bless you and the people you care about." Gu Yanran turned around and continued to look in the direction of the blue hole. Suddenly she saw a few black dots floating diagonally in front of the yacht. When they got closer, she saw that they seemed to be people who had fallen into the water. Miss Gu, there are 3 people who fell into the water in front. Should we save them? One of Gu Yinran's housekeepers walked in and whispered in her ear. Gu Yinran reached out. Give me the binoculars. The housekeeper placed a high-powered military binoculars in her hand. Gu Yinran raised the binoculars to look and froze when she saw it. How could it be her? What was she doing? But even though she was confused, she couldn't leave them to die. Gu Yinran ordered, send someone to save them. The waves were still tumbling, but they were much calmer than before. Gu Nianji panted and slowly steadied herself. She said to Yin Shixiang behind her, Brother Xiong, I'm fine now. You can rest now. Yin Shixiang's grip was too tight just now, and it was starting to spasm. It took some effort for him to loosen his grip. He secretly flexed it twice to confirm that there was nothing wrong with his hands before putting them behind his back and taking a step back. He asked hoarsely, Nianji, are you okay? I'm fine. I'm much better now. Gu Nianji turned around to look at Yin Shixiang. Yin Shixiang had thick brows and large eyes. His skin was slightly brown, but it was a bit pale. He was probably dizzy from the waves just now. Gu Nianji patted his arm. Rest for a bit. I'm going out for a bit. What are you going to do? Yin Shixiang grabbed Gu Nianji's hand. You were very reckless this time. Luckily you're fine. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to answer to Huo Xiao. Hearing Yin Shixiang mention Huo Xiaoheng, Gu Nianji felt both sweet and sad. She sniffled and tried to support her body. She said as calmly as possible. If I didn't crash the boat, you wouldn't have Huo Xiao to answer to. Let go of me and let me out. Gu Nianji was telling the truth. The situation just now had been extremely dangerous. Even if Yin Shixiang had done it himself, the result would have been the same. At that time he hadn't been as decisive as Gu Nianji. Yin Shixiang was a bit ashamed but still held her arm. Nianji, Huo Xiao will be fine. He survived even the most dangerous situations. This is nothing. Indeed, the missions that the Special Operations Forces had carried out in the past few years were much more dangerous than this. Moreover, they often faced foreign mercenaries and regular troops. These few bandits and pirates were nothing to them. Gu Nianji knew this was the truth, but she also knew the situation in the Blue Hole was different. It was different from what Huo Xiaoheng and the others had encountered in the past. However, she couldn't explain it clearly to Yin Shixiang. At the end of the day, she was relying on intuition. There was no scientific explanation for it, but because it was intuition she had to go. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to eat or sleep well for the rest of her life. Gu Nianji pushed Yin Shixiang's hand away with one finger at a time. She said calmly, let go of me. I'm going to find Huo Xiao. How are you going to find him? He's in the Blue Hole. He'll come out soon. Yin Shixiang hadn't seen Huo Xiaoheng exchange fire with the people on the yacht because he was engaged by another sniper. He couldn't look around with binoculars like Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji shook her head. Her voice was even calmer. Huo Xiao and Brother Zhe can't come out. If they could, they would have come out a long time ago. Don't you understand? They're in danger. Really? Yin Shixiang's expression changed. Are you sure? I'm not sure, so I'm going down to take a look. Gu Nianji said as she pretended to take off her clothes. Yin Shixiang quickly turned his head away from Gu Nianji. He shouted at the window, if you're not sure, then why are you going? Gu Nianji took the opportunity when he turned his head to rush out of the cockpit. Mimicking him, she quickly locked Yin Shixiang in the cockpit and rushed to the small living room. She found the spare diving suits they'd brought. She took off her sportswear and put on the spare diving suit and only her underwear and underwear. The diving suit was very large and didn't fit her well. But Gu Nianji couldn't care less at that moment. Her little face was tense. Carrying the oxygen tank, she dove into the water and swam with the current towards the Blue Hole. When Yin Shixiang used a metal wire to pry open the locked cabin door and rushed to the deck, he only had time to see Gu Nianji's back swimming in the sea. She was like a mermaid swimming towards her prince. This is the second update. Let me remind you about the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Go ahead and flip to the end of this morning's update to see if there are any surprises. Try again. If it goes well, you'll get a big one tomorrow. Group kiss. Chapter 505. Gu Nianji's swimming ability had been honed with the special forces. If it was just swimming in the sea, Yin Shixiang wouldn't be worried about any waves. However, it wasn't just the waves, but also the people who had just jumped into the sea and might be hiding in the dark to cause trouble. Yin Shixiang rushed to the front of the boat and waved his arms, but he didn't dare call out her name. He was worried that if someone found out it would cause more trouble. He could only howl to vent his anger and nervousness. It was already noon, and the sun shone brightly on the sea, making the water appear even more piercing. Gu Nianji swam with all her might towards the blue hole. The sun shone brightly above her head and the water was blue, but she wasn't in the mood to enjoy the view. Her face was burning from the sun, but luckily she was wearing diving goggles so her eyes weren't hurt. She didn't dare to swim underwater because she didn't have a compass. She would lose her way if she went below the surface. When she was on the surface, she still had to pay attention to the movements of the armed robbers on the yacht that she had knocked over. If they didn't give up and hid somewhere at the bottom of the sea, they could come out at any time to kill her. It didn't matter if she died, but if she died, no one would be able to save Hua Xiaoheng. And Hua Xiaoheng wasn't just important to her, but to the entire Huaxia Empire. Gu Nianji's courage increased when she thought of the heavy responsibility she had. However, she didn't act recklessly. Instead, she used all the swimming skills she had learned in the past 6 or 7 years to try to swim to the blue hole in the shortest time possible without using up too much energy. Gu Yanran stood alone at the front of the black yacht and watched the yacht ride the wind and waves towards the blue hole. The middle-aged woman walked over from behind, her eyes sparkling as she asked her one last time, "Yanran, do you really have to go to the blue hole? Do you really have to save Hua Xiaoheng?" "Yes, I can't just watch him fall into danger," Gu Yanran said without turning her head. Her eyes were focused on the blue hole not far away. The water there was a deeper blue than anywhere else, so blue that it was a bit creepy. "His heart isn't with you, so what's the point of you saving him?" The middle-aged woman looked at her strangely. "Even if you save him, you won't mind seeing him with someone else in the future?" Gu Yanran lowered her head and stared blankly for a moment before replying quietly, "If that's the case, there's nothing I can do. But as long as I save him, I can leave a scar in his heart." Hee, I didn't expect Yanran to be such an infatuated girl. I really couldn't tell before. The middle-aged woman nodded. "That's good. Our paths are different. Give me a small boat and let me down." "Are you leaving?" Gu Yanran finally turned to look at her. Her expression was calm. "Why do you always dress like this? Besides, this is the sea. Are you sure a small boat is enough?" There was no food and no water. If there was a storm, their boat would disappear in the vast sea. If this continued, it would be tantamount to suicide. The middle-aged woman snickered and waved a hand at Gu Yanran. She said lazily, "You don't have to worry about how I dress. But the person you want to save is the person who tried to capture me by all means possible. Am I supposed to just sit here and wait for death? But it's also very dangerous for you to go down to the sea. You might even die." Gu Yanran walked to the middle-aged woman's side and studied her carefully. "I don't know what grudge you have with them, but can you reconcile with them for my sake?" "Hee. Are you sure you want to reconcile?" The middle-aged woman had a strange smile on her face. "I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Just give me a speedboat and let me go quickly. If I'm too late and those people see me with you, they'll misunderstand again." Gu Yanran sighed. "Looks like you still don't want to let go. Actually, why bother? Why bother? It's easy for you to say. If what happened to me happened to you, I don't believe you can still act like a saint." The middle-aged woman snickered and shook her head in disdain. "Stop talking. Hurry up and give me a boat. I still have 2 loyal subordinates. With them protecting me, it won't be a problem to return to shore." Gu Yanran saw that the woman wouldn't listen no matter how much she tried to persuade her. She felt that she had done her best as a friend, so she nodded. "Fine, I'll do as you say. I'll give you a lifeboat as well as some food and water. Use it sparingly. If there are no accidents, you'll be able to return to shore in half a day." "It's only half a day. What are you complaining about?" The middle-aged woman grew impatient and turned to leave. "I'm leaving. This time I'm really going back. There's no need to see me again." With that, she paused and turned back to look at Gu Yanran with a strange smile. "But are you sure you can enter the blue hole to save him? I've already activated your father's electric fence." "What?" Gu Yanran was shocked. She walked quickly to stop the middle-aged woman. "How did you activate it? How did you know about the electric fence here? Who told you?" The middle-aged woman looked like she had heard the funniest joke in the world. Clutching her chest, she laughed so hard that tears streamed down her cheeks. She used the back of her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes as she giggled. "How would I know? Who told me?" "That's a good question, but I don't know either." "Ah." The middle-aged woman laughed heartily as she jumped off the yacht. She jumped into a lifeboat that had just been released from the yacht into the sea. Her 2 subordinates followed suit and jumped down as well. The lifeboat rocked twice on the surface of the sea. The middle-aged woman's subordinates quickly steadied themselves and started the lifeboat. Gu Yanran stood at the bow of the boat and watched as the middle-aged woman left with her two subordinates. Not long after the three of them left, Gu Yanran's yacht arrived at the waters near the blue hole. The sky ahead was so blue that it almost blinded one's eyes. The longer one looked at the blue hole, the more one would think that everything else was blue. Gu Yanran raised her hand, and the housekeeper immediately placed a pair of custom-made sunglasses in her delicate palm. Gu Yanran put on the sunglasses and looked in the direction of the blue hole. It was much clearer now. She frowned slightly and muttered, "Why did the electric fence here activate? Didn't it run out of electricity after so many years?" She felt very uneasy and crossed her arms as she paced back and forth at the bow of the yacht. In the end, she still didn't believe the middle-aged woman's words. She raised her chin at her housekeeper. "Get someone to take the lifeboat to the blue hole to save someone." "Save who?" the housekeeper asked in surprise. "Do you have a photo?" Gu Yanran's worries were all dispelled by the housekeeper. She laughed. "The blue hole is deserted all year round. Do we still need a photo to save someone? You guys go in and save anyone you see inside." "Yes, Miss Gu." Although the housekeeper felt that Gu Yanran's order was a bit strange, she was the employer and the person who paid them. Her words were the loudest, so they could only keep their opinions to themselves. The housekeeper acted quickly. Within a few minutes, he found two strong sailors to take the lifeboat to the blue hole. Gu Yanran's black yacht was less than 10 meters away from the blue hole. The situation in the sea could already be seen clearly with the naked eye. Moreover, Gu Yanran had high-definition binoculars. She raised the binoculars and could even see Hua Xiaoheng's head popping up from time to time in the blue hole. She could see his handsome eyes, strong arms, and standard swimming style. He was gliding in the blue sky. Although he was in a dangerous place, his posture was still relaxed, as if he did not care about the danger at all. He cruised in this azure world as if this was his territory and he was the king here. Gu Nianji finally neared the blue hole's waters. However, before she could swim over, a black yacht sped over from another direction and also headed towards the blue hole. The yacht created a huge wave, and the waves instantly swept Gu Nianji into the bottom of the sea. She spent a lot of effort to struggle to the surface. Fortunately, the wave just now happened to block the view of the people on the yacht. Whether it was Gu Yanran or the middle-aged woman who had just left, none of them noticed a slender figure floating near the yacht. Gu Nianji floated up from the bottom of the sea and happened to miss the middle-aged woman and the others who had left in the small boat. She shook her head and looked around. After determining her direction, she swam over to the black yacht in front of her. She still didn't know who the people on the black yacht were, but considering the gunmen on the white yacht, Gu Nianji decided to be careful. She carefully kept her figure in the yacht's blind spot so that she wouldn't be discovered by the people on the yacht. "Miss, the blue hole's waters are just ahead." The housekeeper stood beside Gu Yanran and watched with her as the two subordinates in the lifeboat approached the blue hole's waters. Gu Nianji swam behind a reef near the blue hole's waters. Her dark gray diving suit perfectly blended in with the surrounding reef. She lay there motionlessly and observed her surroundings. It turned out that the waters around the blue hole weren't spacious and flat. Instead, there were some rugged reefs entrenched there in a complicated pattern. Therefore, the big boat definitely couldn't pass, but the small lifeboat was no problem. Gu Nianji's eyes widened as she watched the small lifeboat sail towards the blue hole's waters. 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. Went in. Whoosh. Just as the small lifeboat was about to enter the blue hole's waters, a bluish-purple electric arc crackled from the bottom of the small boat. This time, for some reason, the bluish-purple electric arc was even more powerful than before. It was like a bolt of lightning and instantly charred the lifeboat. The two people on the lifeboat were instantly electrocuted into 2 pieces of charcoal. Gu Nianji was shocked. The bluish-purple electric arc just now wasn't this powerful. It had only been less than half an hour, right? How could it be so powerful? Gu Yanran was also shocked. She didn't expect the electric fence her father had left behind to go out of control. This is the first 3,000-word update. A reminder for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There will be an additional update at 7 p.m. The group chat was silent. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.